All right then, it's just gone 9 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get our meeting started. Good morning and welcome to the October 4th Oregon Tourism Commission meeting. To everyone that has joined us here today in Hood River and through Travel Oregon's YouTube channel, thank you for taking the time to be with us. Today's meeting materials, including the agenda and supplemental materials, can be found on the Travel Oregon Industry website if you'd like to follow along. Also, today's presentations will be posted to the website following the meeting. Commissioners, I'd like to acknowledge that in holding a meeting today, we met all public meeting notice requirements provided by state law. And this morning, we have a new face at our table, our newest commissioner, David Gremmels. David, would you like to say a few words?
Chair Boyles, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and commissioners, thank you for welcoming me to this commission. I'm truly honored to be a part of Travel Oregon. I'm just simply a dairy farmer and a cheesemaker from Southern Oregon. I lead a mission-driven company, and a company that is organic and founded on values that are really driving sustainability. The values in my life are simply safe, healthy, positive, other-centered. And when Todd asked me to join, I looked at the values of Travel Oregon, and they really resonated with me. As a farmer, we look at soil first, and we look at regenerative soil to table. And what really struck me was the stewardship that is part of the values of Travel Oregon and how it's really focused on a regenerative future and really focused, again, on community, equity, and integrity. And as a B Corp, it's really the core of what we lead with is that integrity and selflessness. And I'm truly honored to be a part of this commission and strategically moving Oregon forward in the spotlight for which it deserves as the best destination to travel to in the world. Thank you.
Well, welcome and thank you for those words. So, commissioners, we'll move on with to our introductions, and we'll start with Vice Chair DeNovo.
Lucinda DeNovo, the Mill Casino Hotel and RV Park owned by the Coquille Indian Tribe in beautiful Coos Bay, Oregon.
Commissioner Shepard.
Mia Shepard from Maupin, Oregon, and owner outfitter at Little Creek and Juniper River Adventures.
And we'll continue around the table.
Good morning, I'm Scott Youngblood, the innkeeper at the Embassy Suites by Hilton in Washington Square in beautiful Washington County. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Maria Ponzi, formerly of Ponzi Vineyards, currently owner of Laurelwood Vineyard Management. I share the farming sentiments that you just addressed, and welcome, Commissioner Dremel. And lovely to be here in beautiful Hood River. Thank you for a gorgeous day yesterday.
Commissioner Pendleton.
Good morning, David Pendleton with America's Hub Tours and Oregon Tour Experts. I just want to say, first of all, yes, I'm excited to be here as well. In Hood River and the surrounding area, and looking forward to my adventure out to the Dalles later today as well. Thank you.
I'm Greg Willits. I'm from one of the most beautiful towns in Oregon, Sisters, Oregon. I have a lodge there, Five Pine Lodge, Shibui Spa. And I want to say thank you to Lizzie. Thank you for our welcome bags. They're spectacular. And hit home with me because they're food-based gifts. That's not funny. Thank you for having us.
I'm Erin Stevenson from McMinnville, Oregon, and I am founder and co-owner of the Atticus Hotel on 3rd Street Flats, and I really appreciate all the work that went into the tours we went on yesterday and the beautiful Gorge and Hood River. It was wonderful, so thank you.
And I am Richard Boyles, founder and president of Merite Hotel Management, president of Psycan B Corp, and with my wife and operator, founder and operator of Iris Vineyards. So this is, and currently serving as chair of the Oregon Tourism Commission. And this is my first meeting as chair of the Oregon Tourism Commission. And I'm pleased and excited to serve in this role. And I'm happy to be serving at a time when the visitor industry continues to rebound from the depths of the pandemic that hobbled the organization's ability to pursue its work of tourism promotion and destination stewardship. I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners for electing me chair. I appreciate the confidence that that expresses. As a commission, we have interesting and important work ahead of us. Our recently adopted 10-year strategic vision provides a new lens for guiding and evaluating the initiatives and objectives embodied in the strategic plan for Travel Oregon. I look forward to collaborating with Vice Chair DeNovo, the Commission, and our CEO, Todd Davidson, in setting the agenda for our work, tracking Travel Oregon's accomplishments, celebrating Travel Oregon's successes and those of our partners in the travel industry at large. As an economic development agency working in the tourism space, Travel Oregon has the potential to affect positive change for Oregonians. It also has the unique opportunity to provide extraordinary and sometimes transformative experiences to visitors, and I'm inspired by those opportunities. So thanks again for the opportunity to serve as chair. I believe Vice Chair DeNovo has a few words.
Thank you, Chair Boyles. I, too, want to express my thanks to the commissioners for electing me as vice chair. As we all know, it's an honor to serve on this commission, and to be selected to serve in a leadership role is an even greater honor. I recognize the trust my fellow commissioners have placed in me, and I will make sure to honor that trust as we continue to do the good work of promoting Oregon. I look forward to the coming year to work more closely with Chair Boyles, Todd, and the incredibly talented team at Travel Oregon. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lucinda. With that, we have a full agenda today, and I, for one, am looking forward to what's in store. Commissioners, unless you have anything else for the good of the order, let's get started. And we'll begin with our local welcome. Commissioners, as we resume our in-person meetings, one important opportunity we have is to hear from our local partners welcoming us to their communities. It's my pleasure to ask Lizzie Keenan, Katie Cadlip, and Tara Lingley to join us today. So please introduce yourselves so that we can get to know you and this region a little bit better.
Good morning. You need a hug?
No doubt. Constantly.
Welcome to Hood River. It feels like it's a little delayed since you were all here yesterday. Terrible weather, too, for your really. It's like this every early October. Just want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank the Best Western. You guys get to experience the beautiful new building. And I echo your sentiment. I came into this role about 1.5 years ago and been able to Visit Hood River. Sorry, Katie Cadlip. I am the CEO of Visit Hood River. Came into this role from Mount Hood Meadows 1.5 years ago and have been able to see the rebound of tourism as well. And so we had a restructure of the organization. We still have a very small team, but quite fierce. We've had been able to use the rebound to bring together our marketing and our PR. We consolidated there, and we've had some new cool programs that we've put in place. We are going to launch a new brand strategy in the next 30 days, built a new website, which is much more user-friendly. We are also the Chamber of Commerce here in Hood River. And so we have seen a rebound in membership, which has been very exciting, as well as growing our events again. We brought back First Fridays this summer. You guys just missed Hops Fest. Again, terrible weather for that. And Harvest Fest is coming up this weekend, so you may see the tents. They're starting to. Yes, I've loved being here. I agree that this is an amazing industry. I know some of you, excited to meet the rest of you and hug everyone. And yeah, I think, thanks for having me and thanks for being here. And I don't know who I get to hang out with today when we deliver our thank you bags, but it's gonna be fun.
Thank you.
And I don't think we need to introduce, but Lizzie Keenan.
I will still introduce myself. Thank you, Katie. We are very excited to have Katie in the region and on our team. So good morning, commissioners and Todd and everybody in the room. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the region. As mentioned, my name is Lizzie Keenan. I am the lead for the Mount Hood and Columbia River Gorge Regional Tourism Alliance. Some of you have heard us say Margarita. It's a nice acronym there. But we serve as the RDMO for the Mount Hood and Gorge region. I thought it would be helpful this morning to use my time of the local welcome to share with you how our RDMO kind of functions in the region and how we do our work. So to provide a little bit of background, although I think many of you are familiar, our region has a lot of big key issues going on, but also opportunities. So we are home to two of Oregon's most visited sites. That's Multnomah Falls and Timberline Lodge. Both play critical key roles both in bringing visitors here, but also they are part of our congestion issues in the region. Recreation is a top draw for visitation in the region, and our surrounding communities don't all experience the same levels of positive economic impact from that recreation. So there is an imbalance among the communities in the region of where those visitors come to then eat and stay and spend the night. And then our proximity to the Portland metro area means that we get a significant amount of day visitors, which results in millions of visitors to the region, but no lodging tax is collected from them that then we can reinvest back into the region and those assets that they're using. So that's both Portland metro area locals, we're a huge draw, same as the North Coast, as a day trip, or also folks, again, staying in the metro area or even in the Willamette Valley who will just come for the day, but they're staying in a different community. So what do? We take those challenges and we turn them into opportunities for the region. So one way we do that is we kind of fill gaps in our destination management and stewardship needs where our existing agencies and DMOs in the region can't. So one example was earlier this year, the Mount Hood National Forest Service team wanted to convene some public listening sessions to gather information that they needed from the public for their rebuild plans of the Clackamas River corridor. So if you're not familiar, that area was really devastated from the 2020 Riverside fire. And they felt that they were going to be able to get more open and honest feedback and productive feedback from a non-federal partner to run those public sessions. So we have a great relationship with them. They reached out and to me and they said, can you help us? So of course we said yes, and myself and the Mount Hood Territory team stepped in, ran public listening sessions for them, and were able to provide them the feedback they needed to move their plans forward. So additionally, we make small, impactful investments where our money can make a difference in the region. So we kind of look at these big issues and pinpoint areas where we can target with ideally a minimal investment with a big ROI. So examples of that, we've invested in solutions around that high use recreation concerns we have in the search and rescue problem. So some of you are familiar with the Trailhead, and now it's called Trail Ambassador Program. We had some volunteers a couple of years ago from the commission help out with that. We built that program, if you're not familiar, with Friends of the Gorge originally, and so that was to get volunteers at our busy trailheads during the high season on the weekends to give safety information out to visitors and make sure they'd looked at a map of the trail and answer any questions they had. Also recommend places to eat lunch afterwards versus just going home. So that program's now run by TKO, Trail Keepers of Oregon. We invest in it annually. TKO's been able to expand it, so it's now on the coast as well. Similarly, we invest annually in the River Ambassador Program, which addresses similar issues, but for river access on the Clackamas River. And that came out of the Clackamas River Tourism Studio that Travel Oregon ran I think it was just a few months before the pandemic hit. But We Love Clean Rivers runs that program, and again, we support it as best we can. We also invest in dispersion tactics and diversification products. So the goal is to disperse visitors better throughout the region and direct visitor flow, ideally away from that high-use recreation and into our small businesses, in particular our restaurants, farms, and food trails. So Tastebound Book was our big project this year, which you all got in your packages. So that's something that we put together with partners in the region. It highlights our local restaurants, it highlights our farms, so encouraging people to not just go to the restaurants, but also experience where that food came from, because we have, as you learned yesterday, a bounty of options to experience that in our region, and not just in the Fruit Loop, but also in the East Gorge, in the West Gorge, over on like the lower Mount Hood area especially. So for those in the room, if you didn't get a copy of the book, there are some over there for folks online. You can download it for free. It's available in English and Spanish online, and we're currently just getting it out there and supporting that area of the region. We've also made investments both in capacity support and program investments into the East Gorge food trail as that's grown, because the East Gorge is a priority area for us in terms of moving that visitor flow around. And our main collateral for the region is actually a map. It's an infinity loop map, so it's not a big magazine, and the map is basically encouraging people to do an infinity loop shape. You can experience our region in a double loop that will get people to go beyond the Mount Hood Scenic Loop, which is that common one-day trip where all the congestion is. Our map does not have Multnomah Falls on it. It really doesn't have any waterfalls on it. It doesn't have Timberline Lodge on it. And so what's highlighted is the places where we know have capacity and we can drive opportunity and business to, just to influence where the visitors are going to visit. As well, we develop tools and resources in the region for our partners to extend their capacity and what they can do and how they can be better stewards of the industry. So you heard a little bit yesterday, for those who are here, we do have a grant writer that is there for our partners. So we contract with them, we pay them, and send them out, and whoever needs help, whoever's interested in running a program but needs funding, we send Lori over to them, and she's been able to help a handful of folks, which is amazing. We also scholarship trainings and conferences. So right now we've got an application open. I think we're going to be able to get 13 people out to a handful of conferences and trainings in the region. We've also gotten our DMO partners. We scholarshiped them to participate in Destination International's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Leadership Series, which is a 6-month series, so that they can both take the learnings and tools from that, bring it into their organizations, and then bring it into their communities. So then the other piece of the puzzle is my staff capacity on top of all that, because we do have these large management issues, and these are kind of smaller fixes that we can work on. The other part of my role is really getting a seat at the table, which is, a common phrase, but it is needed in our region. So I'm there to make sure that tourism's voice and perspective is present, it is heard, making sure that people see us as a solution and not an afterthought, I think, which is what used to be the case. I'm in the room in these larger management conversations, advocating for our partners, advocating for the value of our industry. And while I don't always have money to support a solution, our RDMO brings expertise, we bring perspective. Sometimes we bring in Travel Oregon as well, and we can make connections where they may not have been there already. So one example of this, which you're going to hear about in a couple of minutes, is the Waterfall Corridor permit. The budget for just one pilot season of that far exceeds our annual budget. So it was not something that our money could necessarily make a difference in, but I knew that our expertise and feedback would. So when Tara Lingley shared that they were going to move forward with this permit, I said, please include me. I want to help any way I can. And also, I think this issue is bigger than just our region. I want to pull in Travel Oregon. So Travel Oregon's marketing team got really involved, and it was a huge collaborative project among many agencies beyond just us. So other examples of rooms and spaces I'm in is in the wake of the pandemic, every region in Oregon had ours was the Mid-Columbia Economic Resiliency Team. Every region had one of these teams. So this is where Business Oregon, Economic Development Districts, SBDCs, that's the Small Business Development Centers, WorkSource Oregon, came together in different regions throughout the state. And I think in the room, all of the RDMOs were part of their groups across the state. And we were on the core team helping our businesses get through the pandemic, or the worst of the pandemic. I'm part of the North Central Regional Solutions Team, which is through the governor's office. I'm a board member and core team member of the Columbia Gorge Tourism Alliance. So that's the bi-state network that you heard from yesterday. I'm part of the Round the Mountain Transportation Planning, et cetera, et cetera. So those are those kind of big room tables. And then additionally, the exciting news we have is this year we were finally able to get an AmeriCorps rare position, a placement. Kristen, she's in the room. We have now doubled capacity for the region. Yay, we have 2 people. So with that extra person, things that we're able to accomplish is She's working on accessibility. So you heard a little bit about what CGTA is doing. She's going to help run a lot of that work for the Oregon side with CGTA and also take some of that into Mount Hood. She's focused on climate action work and car-free transportation projects. So right now she's working with Mount Hood Territory on a car-free workshop experience for the upcoming Oregon Outdoor Recreation Summit, which is going to be on Mount Hood. And so they're going to get people to start in Portland and take public transportation all the way up to Mount Hood Oregon Resort, which is possible. And there'll be transportation providers along the way, giving them information about what that's like. Along with experiencing it themselves. She's working on our food systems and with our agritourism partners, so supporting the Tastebound book in particular, getting it out just in our region locally and getting it into libraries and maybe schools. She's also gonna help run an agritourism summit for CGTA here in Oregon in February. And then she's lifting a lot of our destination stewardship work. So supporting those ambassador programs I mentioned. She's helping out with today's hospitality thank you project that I know a few of you are volunteering with. Very excited for that. So yeah, while we see great results from these investments and our added rare capacity, to take that further, the significant management needs we have in our area are still bigger than the scope of the RDMO, and they impact visitation across the whole state, not just our region, and they really do require state and federal agency support, which is why I've brought some special guests to speak next. So that was a little bit of insight into how our RDMO functions in the region. So with that, I would love to introduce you to Tara Lingley from ODOT, Stan Hanatsu from Forest Service, and did Clay make it? And not Clay from State Parks, but State Parks was an integral part in this process as well. David Spangler from Oregon State Parks was there last night at dinner. Some of you might have met with him. But they're going to share a little bit about the results of the recent project that they did with the permit system in the Waterfall Corridor. So with that, I will pass it on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Clay Courtwright sends his regrets. He's a bit under the weather today. My name is Tara Lingley. I'm the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area Coordinator for the Oregon Department of Transportation. And I bet you didn't know that we had a Scenic Area Coordinator, but now you do.
And I'm Stan Hinatsu, the Recreation Staff Officer for the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area Forest Service.
Great.
Nice to meet you all.
Are we able to display the PowerPoint? Oh, is it? There it is. Okay, fantastic. So apologies for the double computer here. Still transitioning to being in person. So I wanted to share with you a little bit, thank you, Lizzie, for the great introduction, on what we've been working on the historic Columbia River Highway, what we call the Waterfall Corridor, as well as access to Multnomah Falls. So to provide a little bit of context, congestion and safety issues are not a new problem in the Columbia River Gorge. We've been studying this issue for about a decade. In 2017, we started this Congestion and Transportation Safety Improvement Plan and finished it in 2019. It included a range of recommendations on projects to move forward to address the congestion and safety issues we see in the Gorge, both on Interstate 84 as well as the historic Columbia River Highway. We collected a bunch of baseline data, which we have been using to inform projects ever since. So some of the baseline data, we estimate about 2.5 million people visit the Gorge every year. Hopefully we'll have updated data soon. The Forest Service does a visitor use survey on a regular basis, so we'll have updated numbers shortly. About 2/3 of those travel 70 miles or less. So again, Lizzie, the Gorge is Portland's backyard. And most of those folks come by car, personal vehicle, rented vehicles, et cetera. These create impacts on the recreation sites, roadways and trailheads, et cetera, and they create congestion, and they impact the natural areas and create safety concerns on both sides of the river. Washington is not immune to this issue as well. What we've been doing is we've been piloting different projects for the past 3 years. We've had various permit systems, either specifically at Multnomah Falls or for the Waterfall Corridor at large. But this past year, 2022, summer season, our pilot goals were to improve safety, reduce congestion, and improve the visitor experience. So this is a map of both the Waterfall Corridor and the Interstate 84. And this is a map that we used in our public outreach. So the orange section you see there is largely federal lands. And then the historic highway is in there in the dark orange. And so the Waterfall Corridor, as we define it, starts at Bridal Veil exit, so exit 28 off of Interstate 84, and goes to Ainsworth State Park, which is exit 35 on Interstate 84. And the timed use permits were in 2 locations. One, to use your private vehicle to access the federal lands along the Waterfall Corridor. That is what we call the Waterfall Corridor permit. And then there was a specific Multnomah Falls permit, which was to access the parking lot that's off of Interstate 84 at exit 31. A little bit of details for you on the pilot system. There were 2 separate permits. They were not interchangeable. The Waterfall Corridor timed use permits, we had 60 permits available per hour between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m., for a total of 540 available per day. There were also 50 available per day in person. The online permits, there was a $2 transaction fee on recreation.gov, and the in-person permits, there was no fee. And 30 were allocated to Cascade Locks Historical Museum, and 20 were allocated, I got that backwards. 30 to Troutdale, Gateway to the Gorge Visitor Center, and 20 to the Cascade Locks Historic Museum. We issued a total of about 50,000 permits through recreation.gov and about 1,500 permits in person. And then, Stan, do you want to talk to the Multnomah Falls piece?
Yeah, so for the Multnomah Falls piece, as you can see, the hours of operation was between 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock. We allocated, and we'll look at that later, our allocation was a bit different than from the historic highway. It was based on the parking demand study that Tara mentioned earlier. So we had available a total of 910 permits per day. There are no permits available in person, although people could get on rec.gov to get those permits when they arrived. And you see just under 80,000 permits were issued through the summer between Memorial Day and Labor Day.
So general public feedback, both permit systems had a 4-star out of 5-star review on recreation.gov, and this is a really quote-unquote pure review. You had to have purchased one of the permits to be able to select the star review, and then you could provide a short sentence or 2 about how the permits worked or did not work for you. There was some confusion between the 2 permits, especially for out-of-town visitors or international visitors who didn't understand that there was both a historic highway and I-84, the parking lot there. The folks that were familiar with the area and were coming and using the permits reported that they saw much less congestion, the increased ability to park. I also want to make clear that the permits were not parking permits. They were to access federal lands while using your private vehicle. There was a lot of misconception that the $2 transaction cost was a fee. It was not. It was to support the online piece. Forest Service or ODOT or any of the project partners did not see any of those funds. Solely went to the online system. And there was a lot of uncertainty pre-9 a.m. and post-6 p.m. Is it open? Can we access it? Those times were just when the permit was available. It was open on other times, and we actually were encouraging folks to go before then and after then to avoid the congested hours. The other piece is we significantly bumped up the transit with our partners at Columbia Area Transit, also as the Hood River Transit Authority. They run and operate the Columbia Gorge Express. So here's a before and after the Waterfall Corridor permit ridership. So on the left is 2021 ridership, and on the right is 2022. The green is the regular Columbia Gorge Express, so that's it's Gateway Transit Center all the way to Hood River. And then the yellow that you see on top on 2022, they added an additional service called the Falls to Locks service that was specifically from the Portland metro area to Cascade Locks. And obviously, Multnomah Falls was kind of the centerpiece of that service. So just a rundown, we have gathered the data from the permits. We have it broken down by hour. So this is for the Waterfall Corridor, so to use your private vehicle to access federal lands along the historic highway. There were 60 available per hour, and you can see that the morning time up till about 3 p.m. is kind of our peak visitation as referenced in the permit purchases. And then by day, this is pretty similar to what we had pre-pandemic and pre-permit, is that we see our highest visitation Friday through Monday and our lowest visitation midweek. And then for the in-person permits, at the 2 locations, like I said, green is Troutdale and the orange is Cascade Locks. Troutdale never sold out their permits. I think they were allocated 30 permits per day to distribute in person, and I think the highest they got was 23 on one day. Cascade Locks had pretty much every weekend towards the end of the permit pilot sold out their 20 allocated per day. And I think a lot of that was people were unwilling to backtrack once they got to the Waterfall Corridor, realized they need a permit, realized that one wasn't available, and so they'd go further to Cascade Locks instead of backtracking to Troutdale. Tuesday and Wednesday, the Cascade Locks Historic Museum was closed, so that's why they didn't pass out any permits then. But as you can see, it mimics kind of what we saw for the rec.gov purchases, is that, Friday through Monday is really their highest days. And then I'll turn it over to Stan for Multnomah Falls.
Yeah, what I'd like to mention is that there's probably a question, why couldn't you just do one permit for both Multnomah Falls and the Historic Highway, right? I bet you have that question. Well, that decision was made intentionally to keep them separate. And the reason being is trying to manage the number of cars in that exit 31, the Multnomah Falls parking lot. And you guys have probably heard from the past the difficulties we've had with that, ODOT in particular, with backups into the left, the fast lane on the emergency lane of the fast lane. ODOT installed gates to try to manage traffic there when the parking lot gets 98% full. The gates closed to prevent other vehicles from coming in, but then they of course wait for the gate to open, so they park behind the gate. So it's become a bit of a nightmare for ODOT in particular, and certainly a significant safety issue and hazard. So that was the primary reason for separating those. By doing the permit for Multnomah Falls, just for that parking lot alone this year, was to help prevent some of that activity from occurring, to essentially reduce the number of vehicles accessing the Multnomah Falls parking lot, exit 31. So I wanted to specifically mention that because we get that question a lot. Well, why can't you combine them? Why can't one pass just work for everything? But there was a specific reason for doing that, primarily safety. I'm not going to go into the detail about Multnomah Falls. We did a little bit of that early. We can look at the past sales here over the summer months. Yeah, next slide, please. So we talked about how we allocated. We allocated the permits based on the traffic demand or the parking demand study that was done several years ago. And looking at when we saw the most use, of course, it's between that 11 to 3 o'clock period of time. And then that sort of those shoulder periods is where we saw the least use. So we allocated more tickets for the lower amount of use periods on either side of 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, hoping that we could at least encourage visitors to visit either earlier or visit later. As you can see, we had some success early in the morning and limited success in the afternoon hours. And again, these allocations were based on the number of parking lots that were available, duration of stay, and kind of finagling the numbers, and it seemed to work this year. Last year, this is the second year of the permit at Multnomah Falls. Last year it was a per person permit. This year we went to a per vehicle permit, mainly for simplicity for visitors. and it was easy to manage and track vehicles. And then again, you can see how the permits were issued or acquired throughout the week, similar to the historic highway, albeit Sunday, we think we have some anomaly there, because typically we would see Sunday as one of our busiest days of the week. I do want to mention the partnership aspect of this. Columbia Area Transit, with an agreement with the Forest Service, they provided some transit services for Dog Mountain, and through that agreement, we also had them, and they agreed to provide the staff to do the ticket checking or the permit checking at Multnomah Falls. So that was a huge partnership for us. Don't know how we could have done it with our own staff. And also, I want to acknowledge and just really acknowledge ODOT and OPRD in particular. They did the heavy lift. I suppose you could say the Forest Service and this part of the historic highway is the attractive nuisance, if you want to call it that, for them. And Tara in particular, put a lot of effort into getting the pilot program take it off. OPRD provided all the staff for checking the permits for entering into the Waterfall Corridor at a pretty huge expense, not monetarily, but having to prioritize that versus taking care of some of their parks. So I just want to acknowledge this was a heavy lift by all partners. We struggled through it. It was a difficult process to identify, can this work? Can we make this work? How do we make this work with the different authorities? And really, it's about authorities and different missions each agency has. So I think this was a huge accomplishment just to get the permit system on the historic highway launched this year. And I know we'll talk about the future here in a little bit and how that might bode. But anyway, so I just wanted to acknowledge that a huge partnership, a lot of collaboration, a lot of effort to make this happen. And kudos to OPRD and to ODOT in particular.
Great. So at the beginning, I talked about 3 goals, and I'm going to rush through this because I think we're up on time. But the first goal is to improve safety. We didn't see a significant difference in crash reports, so at least we can say we didn't make it worse. And then we know that EMS and law enforcement had anecdotally had let us know that they were able to more easily and quickly access the corridor when there were search and rescue, and this was a high search and rescue year. Reducing congestion, we'll talk about traffic volumes. We also anecdotally heard that it was much better. The neighbors, we have residents that live along the historic highway, they also reported that it was better. So traffic volume results. So we took traffic volume counts in 2022, which is kind of that fluorescent green, and compared it to 2017, which is that blue line. I think we're still not caught up from 2017 because we had the fire, we had COVID, we had the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So I don't think in a normal year, 2022 would have matched the volumes of 2017, but we did see significant reduction in traffic volumes at Bridal Veil specifically and Ainsworth State Park, which were within the Waterfall Corridor, less so on Larch Mountain, which was outside of the Waterfall Corridor. The other thing, this graph tells the most. We see on the left, 2017, we had that very defined peak in the middle of the day. And during the pilot program, we actually managed to spread it out, which was one of our big goals. So mission accomplished. And please ignore the blue line that goes down to 0. I think that's a counter anomaly. We also we had a ton of feedback. I think, let me get to my notes here, but we had almost 1,900 individual pieces of feedback. On recreation.gov, lots of folks coming back said it was fantastic. General survey, folks just not even necessarily users, but they were talking about how it was easy and convenient. We also had a very skeptical resident at the beginning who thought it was going to be terrible and actually came around and is now a convert and would welcome it in future years. So I print that out and I clocked out for the day. Again, this is just a little bit better depiction of kind of the total comments received. We've coded them positive, negative, or neutral. When you take out neutral, we had about a 55% positive rate, which is amazing for the first year of kind of this comprehensive permit. Not everyone agreed. It wasn't all roses and flowers and sunshine. A lot of feedback that this was a confusing system. I'm not going to read all of these, but stressful. Because this wasn't a parking permit, and parking really is the limiting factor, we have a lot of demand to use your private vehicle to access this corridor, and we have very limited parking. So a lot of people were very upset. They got the permit, they jumped through all the hoops, they did all the things, and then they just couldn't find a place to park. So I think moving forward, we'll have to true up that parking mismatch that we have. So what happens without the pilot? On September 6th, multiple news outlets said, no permits needed, you're free to visit the Gorge. Thank you, news partners. And anecdotally, we saw long queues of traffic, increased traffic. There was a lot of frustration, honking. This photo Lizzie provided to us, I think she was there 2 weeks ago. And this was a situation on a Monday. School's back in session. It's quote unquote fall, but we still have the issues we have. And then I pulled a couple of Google reviews that were submitted without the pilot. Someone didn't have a place to park, they parked on the road, their car got broken into. It was terrible. And everything was great except for parking. And then I have this really fun illustrative video. So the maroon vehicle on the left is in the oncoming lane approaching a pedestrian crosswalk where pedestrians are actively using because everyone is waiting to turn left into the parking lot on the historic highway. They're just stopped. This is a state highway that they are stopped on, doing that Christmas Eve parking lot stalking that you see at the mall. But it's a highway, and we have people doing very illegal maneuvers. We also, you can kind of see in the still here, that oncoming traffic is also using the oncoming lane. So we have 4 lanes of traffic, and they're just staring at each other. So this is business as usual, and it does not work. So what's next? So we're going to continue to gather and evaluate the pilot data. So additional data to come are speeds on the historic highway during the pilot. We'll continue to comb through the feedback and the comments, and we'll have a full evaluation report that we'll be releasing on our website. It's waterfallcorridorpermits.org if you're interested, and we're already starting to plan for next year. Stan did mention that this was a huge lift monetarily, financially, and the burden on staff. That's not sustainable. We had no dedicated funding for this. We had a lot of partners. The funding that we have monetized is about $600,000, $800,000.
In that range, yeah.
In that range between the 3 entities, but that is missing a lot of staff time from Travel Oregon. It's missing a lot of the staff time from all of the partner agencies just to plan and respond to comments and all of that. So not sustainable. We do need to do something, as the video shows. So we're continuing to have those conversations. We would love support from the Tourism Commission as well as Travel Oregon. And I think we're going to really focus in on matching that parking demand to the available parking, because that really is the problem. We learned that in the congestion study. We learned that with the permit we can mostly solve the problem, but really it's the parking, because that was still problematic during the permit system. So with that, thank you very much.
One quick question, and thanks, that was very informative, I appreciate it. As far as bike usage and safety, there was not a comment there. Is there anything you'd like to share? In addition to that, I will say this, you've done a great job with the permitting system. The theft issue is still a major problem up there for both personal cars and other vehicles as well. So any thoughts or comments?
Thank you for that. Yes, we did take bicycle counts, and we saw about 10 So we compared 2017 and 2022 data. I do have those counts. We saw about, on average, 10 more cyclists. But anecdotally, I don't know if you saw the Bike Portland article, but a lot of folks were very excited about being able to bike in a less congested, and there were a lot of comments that folks were actually, once they got to the permit check-ins, they were at their destination. So they were doing the leisurely drive as the historic Columbia River Highway was originally envisioned, taking in the sights, not rushing to Multnomah Falls to do the hike and, get back in their cars and get out. So it was better for everybody, and we did hear that from cyclists, that it was lovely. As to the theft, I do have data from Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. It was a little reduced this year as compared to last year specifically. 2020, when the corridor was closed, we had no car break-ins. So, yes, I think it did help a little bit, but I don't think it helped a lot. We still had break-ins. We still had complaints. Yeah.
Yeah, I think overall, throughout the Gorge, and I think both state parks could attest to that, that the car clouts or break-ins were on the rise this year. Maybe not in the historic highway corridor as much as other places, unfortunately.
Yeah. Tara and Stan, thank you both very much. I wasn't writing quickly enough. You offered a .org website at the end, near the end.
Yes. Sorry, and I didn't put that on the presentation. My apologies. It's Waterfall Corridor Permits.org. You could also probably Google Waterfall Corridor Permit, and it should show up.
Specifically to Multnomah Falls, have you ever considered timed exits? Are you guys talking about that, where there's an entry and an exit, much like when you go to a museum, you're limited to a certain period of time?
That's a good question. We have not considered that. One of the reasons is that we didn't want to put constraints on visitors. They've got a time slot they can come to visit, but they could stay as long as they want to. That was a major concern by visitors when this first came out. Well, how long can we stay? Can we only stay an hour? And especially our concessionaires at Multnomah Falls, that's a concern for them as well, for folks who have reservations that might want to stay longer. So we didn't go there, but it's certainly something for us to rethink as we reevaluate how this thing is moving forward for next year.
Yeah, I guess I wonder, you focused on the parking aspect of it, but how many people do you want at Multnomah Falls at one time, right? To make sure that those trails are still in good condition, and I'm sure you've thought about this. That's really where my question was leading to.
Yeah, so our site is designed to handle about 1,200 visitors at one time. And if you look at the parking lot, the current configurations of the parking lot and the historic highway parking lot, we're right about there when the parking lot is full. So it's not like we're being overwhelmed on site, it's being overwhelmed in the parking pieces. And as you probably know, the National Scenic Area has some constraints on parking lot sizes for different recreation intensity classes. Of course, Multnomah Falls is the highest, and it's only, our guidelines allow for 250 cars. So that's not very many when you think about Multnomah Falls. And so thinking about expanding the parking lot is problematic with respect to our National Scenic Area guidelines. But the site is hardened and can handle probably a little more visitation. But again, it's the parking that's the issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm curious if you've given any consideration to public-private partnerships and how the private sector might be able to get involved and ease some of these issues. I'm thinking actually more along the lines of larger scale tour operations, et cetera, trying to funnel people into essentially larger transportation and bringing people in buses so that there's less traffic, and what consideration your teams might have given to those sorts of aspects.
Yeah, that's a great point, and apologies to David Duncan, who's in the audience. For the sake of time, I cut out kind of the private tour operators that operate on the historic highway, but we have two shuttle operators that operate, and we've been working very closely with them as we instituted the Waterfall Corridor permit. You didn't need a permit if you were on a shuttle. So we were trying to push people to larger vehicles. And then ODOT, since 2016, has helped to get the shuttle up and running to Multnomah Falls so people don't have to take their private vehicle. Unfortunately, the economics are kind of backwards. You know, it's free to park. You know, there's a lot of sunk costs that, you know, people aren't opening their wallet for, but you have to open your wallet and purchase tickets to get on a tour bus. So, you know, the folks who knew, and actually I think they had a lot of repeat customers this year. This is the second year of running the trolleys on the historic highway. The people that know that it's a great deal, and it's a lot less stressful than trying to find parking. But when you're looking at just the cost, it's a hard choice to make, to spend more to have a nicer experience.
I just wanted to comment and tell you, I really appreciate the collaborative spirit of this project, and I find that whenever groups like yours get together, great things can happen, and also set models for other usages. I'm always concerned about just the wear and tear on our natural resources. So I think that it's a model that beyond cars and traffic, that we can also consider for those heavy use trails that we hopefully can preserve for the future. I was wondering about the communication of this, because obviously you're going to always have people who have never heard of the permit. How does that work? I was on the Travel Information Council ages ago with the signage that would, you know, let people know where to go. Are you considering, or have you considered signage on the highway so that people know they have to get a permit before they end up getting there without one?
Yeah, that's another thing that got cut in the sake of time, but
Sorry.
we did, no, it's absolutely fine. It's a great question. We have the variable message signs, ODOT does, both permanent, and then we place two variable portable message signs that did say historic highway permit required. As you approached a permit check-ins point, there were 3 signs saying permit check ahead, flagger ahead, stop ahead, to warn folks. I printed 5,000 RAT cards that got distributed through Certified, and actually that was one of the things that Travel Oregon helped us with, to certify, get out those RAT cards to the various spots that tourists go to. We printed posters, we did web interview, we did a webinar, we did interviews, we did we did a lot, but we're not going to reach everyone, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say, at least at Multnomah Falls, from hearing from the CAT folks, the Columbia Area Transit staff who check tickets, they mentioned from last year there was maybe a 10 to 20% improvement of folks who arrived either with the permit or knew about it. So this year was about 60%, which was up from 40 to 50% last year. And I think it just takes time for folks to get it.
Yeah.
And you can have as much information out there, and the people just.
Yeah, they don't
they do.
read, I understand. But yeah, if there's a place in Troutdale, for example, where they can get that permit to know, you know,
Yeah.
that signage to Troutdale, this is where you want to stop before they go beyond. I felt like there was one more thing. Seasonal. So the duration of the permitting.
Oh, yeah.
Did you already mention that?
I did not, no.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. May 24th through September 5th was the dates of operation, so about 3 months.
Okay.
Because that is we like to say Memorial Day to Labor Day is our peak season, though basically any nice weekend day is the busy season in the Gorge. Yeah, that we target that because it's the worst of the worst, and we don't have funding, so we were strategic in our investment. But yeah, I think moving forward, we're going to continue to target the peak season, understanding that there's issues year-round.
And my last comment, and I promise to stop, but you know, I don't want to forget Lizzie's comment earlier about how many visitors come to this region and then they're not spending money while they're here.
Correct.
And just wondering if that piece could be worked on. I understand that the $2 is going towards the online system. You know, maybe it's $3 and something goes back to our locals. But anyway, just a thought on as this continues and I hope improves, you know, to consider our local chapters.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, commissioners?
I just,
I echo,
no, go ahead, David.
I echo Commissioner Ponzi's comments. Congratulations on the Herculean coordinated effort here. And I heard there was a concern about sustainability, and I'm seeing that with personnel and financial budget, and just wondered what those gaps might be. It's a big question.
Yeah, almost $1 million a year, I think, is the short answer.
Big gap.
Big gap.
Okay.
Big gap. And as you know, Forest Service, I can only speak for our agency. It's tough for us to sustain a program like that without charging a fee. And then that becomes problematic as well, charging a fee. And our process for getting a fee approved, it takes too long. So it's a challenge that way. And we purposely left it free because we didn't want to walk into that mess when we knew this was going to be challenging enough.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, then Tara and Stan, thank you for orienting us to the permit pilot and fielding our questions. Lizzie and Katie, the teams may be small, but there's obviously a lot of significant work getting done. Thanks so much for sharing with us the opportunities and challenges you're facing and the work you're undertaking to address that. All right. All right, we are now ready to move on to the next portion of our program. So on Monday, September 19th, the commission meeting notice was posted to the commission meetings webpage. Notice was sent through our industry communications and the meeting materials, including the agenda, financials, and an update to the strategic plan progress report, along with a link to this live stream were posted. There are no items on today's agenda that require official testimony opportunities, but we'd like to remind our stakeholders, partners, and the public that a comment form lives continually on our industry on our industry meeting page, should you like the opportunity to provide us with your insights. We had 2 such comments submitted ahead of today's meetings, and those have been distributed to the commission. Today, with this meeting being held in person, we also have the opportunity for attendees to sign up and provide in-person testimony today. Do we have anybody wishing to speak? Sarah says nobody's signed up, but I have a hand raised in the back. Please stand and indicate who you are. And
my name is Dan Easton. I run Vision Stages. It's a soundstage for film, television, and commercial productions in Troutdale. And I'm here today because I received a newsletter. I've worked in the film industry for over a decade as a location manager, so I overheard David Spangler's name before I got really excited and permits for a lot of film productions in Oregon. And I'm hearing a lot of things about needing public-private partnerships and space in Troutdale to perhaps have some parking. My stage is 36,000 square feet. We have a 164,000 square foot parking lot that comes with us. We already have buses that come through. I'm just here today to learn and meet some face-to-face and offer what I can to help.
Bravo.
thanks for that. And we did receive your letter as well, so both are duly noted. All right, then with that, we will move on to review of the commission packet. So commissioners, I'd like to confirm that you all received your packets and had an opportunity to review them, including the financials.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
thank you. So with that, I would invite, well, first of all, with respect to the financials, I'd like to thank Commissioner DeNovo for reviewing the financials with me and Commissioner Willits, as well as Todd and Kathleen prior to the meeting. Lucinda, would you like to speak to the financials, please?
It would be my pleasure, Chair Boyles. We did review the financials and reviewed the final financials for fiscal year 2022, as well as financials for fiscal year to date 2023. The final fiscal year, excuse me, this is like a, sorry, I'll just keep going. The final financials for fiscal year 2022 were included in our commission materials and have been posted to the industry site. When we met in June, this update was that the May TLT deposit came in a little lighter than expected, but when the Department of Revenue posted the final numbers in July, our final TLT came out in $186,000 over budget, 35.8 million versus 35.6 million budgeted. Looking at our current fiscal year to date for Q1, we have received 10.2 million in transient lodging tax dollars, or 30.5% of the current budget. Normally, we would be about 24% of budget at this time, so we are on pace with the February 2022 updated revenue forecast. Year over year, the year-over-year increase for transient lodging tax dollars is up 36% compared to the same time frame in fiscal year 2022. Compared to fiscal year 2019, the TLT dollars are up 16% after adjusting for the change in the tax rate. A few additional things to note. The remaining unawarded Senate Bill 5561, the Outfitters Guide grants, have been returned to Business Oregon. The last of the Oregon 2022 grant payments have been sent out, and all RCTP funds for the current fiscal year have been distributed. Thank goodness I'm done, Chair Boyles.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair DeNovo. Do the commissioners have any questions with respect to the financials?
I had a question on the, I was looking at the budget versus actual, at the conference event revenues down. Is that, can anyone answer, is that Portland-based, or why are those revenues down?
You're referring to the current fiscal year to date?
Yeah.
Well, we're in advance of that conference. So,
Okay.
so this is about revenue that's coming in support of the conference that'll be in spring of '23.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why that
So
shows the.
that's why we're still down. Yeah.
Other questions?
I was just hoping to give Vice Chair DeNovo one more shot at final financials for.
Final fiscal financials.
Never mind, I couldn't do it. No one could
Yes,
do that.
say that 5 times fast. All right. Well, thank you then. We'll move on then to an update regarding the CEO evaluation. Each year, the commission completes a review of performance, a performance review of the Travel Oregon CEO. This process, the process to inform the review was led by me, along with Commissioners DeNovo and Commissioner Youngblood. We sought input from statewide stakeholders, tourism professionals, Travel Oregon staff, other agencies, and of course, direct input from tourism commissioners themselves. We're pleased to report on the consistent enthusiasm and appreciation for Todd's work shared by the commission and the industry alike. As a result of our review of Todd's performance, a 5% increase will be made to Todd's salary. This compares to a 6.9% increase on average for Travel Oregon staff at large. So do the commissioners have any comments or questions about the CEO evaluation process?
Chair Boyles, I just want to thank you for leading this process and some of the changes we made this year to include the employee survey with questions that were more relevant for employees. I think we have some learnings and some work to do with the industry 360 review, and so I'm just really grateful to Chair Boyles and past Chair Youngblood for all the work really to make this a streamlined process with more input from all of our partners and the team.
Thank you. I appreciate that appreciation, and indeed, I think we have a good process and some learnings to implement as well. So thank you for that. Any other comments?
As a new commissioner, I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the transparency of this process, and it's very complete and great work.
Thank you, appreciate that as well. That is among our primary goals in the process. All right, so we now move on to commission actions, including approval of the minutes. So has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of the June 14, 15 meetings? And are there any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, anybody care to offer a motion?
So moved?
Thank you.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? All right, the minutes of the June 14 and 15 commission meetings are approved, and they will be posted to the commission section of the Travel Oregon industry website. So, commissioners and everyone, we're at a natural break in our agenda. We are running a few minutes behind at this point, so I would like to keep the break to 5 minutes. Let's reconvene shortly. Thank you.
You jinxed me.
minutes, but now I'm going to call them in. I would only hit it on my head, you know, so. We are about to reconvene. Please take your seats. All right, please find your seats.
Hey, I need you to do a teeth check.
You have them.
Might notice
You have teeth.
anything.
No. And they look natural.
Thank you. Just take it down to cinnamon roll.
All right, thank you all. We are reconvened now. I'd like to bring this meeting back to order and now ask Todd to introduce our updates.
All right. Chair Boyles, thank you very, very much. You know, we've talked a lot at Travel Oregon and within Oregon's travel and tourism industry about our mix of visitors that are coming and having the opportunity to experience all that Oregon has to offer. And certainly chief amongst those are the visitors that visit us from around the world. And this is a part of our tourism economy that was hammered pretty hard, of course, during the pandemic. But we're seeing signs of recovery. We're seeing tremendous signs of hope as we see air service return. And we thought this would be a prudent time, given where we are kind of in this cycle, to ask Jeff with Tourism Economics to join Petra. You all know Petra is our Vice President of Global Sales, and provide us with an update on kind of where we've been and what our forecast looks like for that return of international visitation. So with that, Petra and Jeff, I'll ask you to come on up. And Jeff, and Jeff, I believe this is your first trip out of Canada since the pandemic, am I right?
No, I've made a few from
No,
Canada.
you should say yes. It is my first trip. Oregon is my first trip.
Boosting your numbers.
I should have scripted you
I'm gonna
better,
take
Jeff. I
another one.
apologize.
Right after I
I
get
didn't
back
know
home.
he was live. I've only seen him on a screen.
I know that by looking at Jeff, by the way, I do know the pandemic is truly over because he got a haircut. So anyway, Jeff and Petra, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Todd. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. Todd just introduced Jeff Walker with Tourism Economics. He's a senior economist who works with Travel Oregon on research, data, and trends. So we'll be hearing a little bit from him in a second. What we've asked him to talk about is what we can expect in the next couple of years from the international recovery to Oregon, but also the United States. And also to hear from him what some of the trends are and what some of the hurdles are currently and what they will continue to be in the future. Before he starts, I want to share a little bit about a few trips the global sales team has taken just last week. I was in Frankfurt, Germany with Brand USA Travel Week. That is where they invite international, or actually not international, European and UK tour operators, media, and our airline partners to meet with destinations in the United States. I was there with Travel Portland, amongst all of our colleagues from different cities and states across the country. What we're doing there is talking to these tour operators and media about product development, building relationships, sales, partnerships, and marketing. Greg was at JADA Tourism Expo in Tokyo with Bob from Travel Southern Oregon. That was his first trip to Tokyo, Japan, and Travel Portland was there as well, along with Brand USA. And Commissioner Gemmel's Brand USA is, I'm not sure if you're aware, but that is the national marketing arm like we are for Travel Oregon. They do that for the whole country. So we partner with them quite a bit, and I'll tell you all about that later.
Thank you.
So what came out in Japan, which is interesting, timing is always perfect. October 11th, Japan will stop all the COVID restrictions. So we hope to see some late fall visitation from Japan. They will be flying in through Seattle or California, but it's always great news when these restrictions are lifted because we know international travel will come back right away with the pent-up demand. So as a refresher for all of you, the global sales team in the last few years during the pandemic really focused on 5 markets. That was Germany, the UK, Canada, Japan, and the domestic travel trade market, shifting to educating trip and travel advisors in the United States that typically sell outbound travel and also the motor coach tour business. Prior to the pandemic, we were in 13 different markets. So we're excited to be branching out a little bit more in some of the markets we've invested in, specifically Australia, which that was one of our top markets prior to the pandemic, France and the Netherlands, which are smaller markets, but we know these travelers go all around the state, and you can find them in every corner of Oregon. So we really appreciate these travelers. In Jeff's presentation, he will share what a huge impact flight cancellations has been on the global market. I'm sure you've all seen it too, like the problems in Amsterdam, Frankfurt. It's just the flights cancellations been pretty tough on the traveler and business traveler. We are lucky in Portland. All of our European flights have relaunched, and British Airways did start service this summer. And I was able to meet with our contact from British Airways in Frankfurt, and Todd met with him as well, and he did say that flight's doing pretty well, but what is interesting is the economy plus and towards the front of the plane, business class are at capacity, they're sold out. And that is completely different than how it was prior to the pandemic. Economy was always sold out, and the business class, that was what the gap always was, but it's completely turned around. He did say that there were some gaps in the economy class in different times of this upcoming months that they will need to fill. One thing that I heard quite a bit, and Greg did too in Japan, is this could be the reason, is what they're calling revenge travel. And I heard it for the first time last week in Germany numerous times, but it's just people that have saved their money, they love to travel, they go every year on a long haul trip, and they've been forced to stay home. So they're like getting back at COVID by taking these long trips. And they've saved money, and they're going to fly business class, they're going to stay in nice hotels, and they're just going to go all out. So we hope a lot of those visitors come to us. So also the flights from Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto have relaunched, and both the Tokyo and New Incheon service will start next spring. So we're really looking forward to that. Just the fact that we have these flights is so important to our economy, and we are so fortunate that at PDX, inbound and outbound, we've had very limited cancellations this summer, so people really are trusting us that they can get to and from Portland and Oregon seamlessly. So also interesting in Jeff's presentation, you will see the recovery of international visitation, spend, and visitors will rebound and surpass 2019 by 2025, but, and that's kind of the overall picture of international travel. But what I found out last week, which I thought was very interesting, with almost every single tour operator I met with, they had the best year in revenue in 2022 that they've ever had in the history of opening their doors. And that I found was really incredible, because there are so many problems right now with the airline cancellations, the car rentals are astronomically expensive, the dollar is extremely strong, everything is a very short-term booking, and they don't have sales force or workforce themselves. So they're working like nonstop to get these flights booked and people traveling across the globe. So they were very surprised that they had their best year, not with numbers, passengers, but with revenue that they've ever had. And they're cautiously optimistic for 2023. There's so many unknowns, but they do feel that there's still going to be this pent-up demand that is going to trickle over, especially in the tour operator business, because people don't want to do it on their own. They want to make sure that if something happens, they have someone to call, they have resources if they get stuck somewhere. So as far as the tour operator business, it's going very, very well. And Jeff now will tell us about the overall picture for international travel coming to Oregon. But what he will tell you, and I'll say it again, is that it will grow year over year, the visitation and spend to Oregon. So that's the really good news. So Jeff?
Jeff, if I may, before you start, I just want to let everybody in the audience know, both here in the room as well as online, that all the presentations today will be shared and made part of our industry website. So I know what always happens is, as soon as Jeff starts talking, you all pull out the pens and start taking copious notes, or you pull out your phones and start taking pictures of. You are welcome to still do that. I just want you to know you don't have to if you don't want to. So with that, Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Petra. Great to be back here, my first trip since moving up to Canada. I've been coming around 5 years now. Commissioners that I haven't met, Jeff Locker, Senior Economist, Tourism Economics. The last couple years, I've basically been known as the guy that twice a year drops in and is just a huge buzzkill talking about the state of the economy. and international travel. The good news is I'm a little less of a buzzkill every time I come by, and pretty soon I'm just going to be
You are gonna be the
amazing.
buzz.
Yeah, I'll be the buzz. All right. Yeah. So briefly, three main sections today. We're going to talk about the global economy in general and its impact on travel. We're going to talk about international travel specifically to the U.S. and Oregon, and then we'll wrap up with kind of our why we have long-term positive thoughts about the state of international travel. So what's going on in the global economy? Inflation is dominating talk currently, just like COVID did the previous 2 years. And in the U.S., it does seem to at least be plateauing, and we do see it slowing down in the near future. We don't see that being the case most of the rest of the world. Here's our forecast for gas in Europe, for one example. We just see this being, quite high for the next year plus, and inflation in Europe being quite high. And that's going to have a major impact on the economy. What we saw basically in 2021 is just a record year for global economic growth. We have the world economy in red, the advanced economies in dark blue, and the developing countries or emerging markets in the light blue. So just a really dynamic year in 2021, and then a pretty sharp slowdown in 2022, and we predict a further slowdown in 2023. Oxford Economics, which is our parent company, is forecasting a very mild recession for the U.S. In the first half of 2023, and a harsher recession for Canada and the Eurozone in 2023. What exactly is a mild recession? Nothing like the last two. We're thinking, like the U.S., maybe unemployment bumping back towards 4.5%. So, still, looking at like a long timeline, a very good number. But we do see a slowdown occurring in the next year. Just a combination of high inflation and the Fed trying to tackle that inflation, slowing things down. So, mild in the U.S., a little bit harsher throughout the rest of the advanced economy. So that's 2023. Move forward. Now we're kind of on our more normal, traditional growth rates going forward for 2024. So on top of the slowing economic growth, we have a second problem, that we have a strengthening U.S. dollar. So here's a look at the how currencies have fared compared to the U.S. dollar, and you see outside of Canada, compared to before the pandemic, everyone is losing strength. So, this just makes trips to the U.S. more expensive and is a deterrent to inbound travel. What does 2023 have in store for the global economy? The Ukraine conflict, along with inflation, is really going to dominate talk. Obviously, they're super related. It's causing a huge increase in energy prices, particularly in Europe. Recently we've seen attacks on energy infrastructure increase in both countries, and that's not good. The only really hope and pray upside for this is maybe there could be a surprise early ending to the conflict. I'm not a geopolitical or military expert, but those that are say don't expect that at all. They're expecting us to be in there for the long haul, and this to drag on for quite a while. Got to talk about China. So the country that used to be kind of the world's leader, the real driver of global economic growth, has really been in a difficult funk lately. So they're creating a lot of the global supply chain difficulties that outside of the Ukraine conflict, that's contributing to global inflation, as people can't get their chips or their other basic needs for their supply chains going. And then just in general, they've just been in a funk. They're really harsh on their lockdowns, and they just haven't gotten their economy up and growing at the rate that we kind of expect out of the Chinese. We do see that easing sometime in the next couple years, but right now they're still a drag on the global economy. Moving over to Europe, tied into the Ukraine conflict, how high does inflation get there? Petra was just telling me when she was in Frankfurt, they were talking about who gets to heat their home and business in Germany. So it's going to be a tough time. It's how harsh the winter is going to be really key in seeing how high inflation gets, and how does that impact their household wallets. And finally, COVID. I mean, this is always something, we act like it's over and it's all done, but we're just one weird mutation away from taking a major step back. And how likely that is, I certainly can't say. But I do think we've kind of acted like it's all gone and past us, but we're just one bad strain away from taking a major hit there again.
Maybe.
I am a buzzkill.
Maybe.
So what all this have to do with international travel, or more specific issues in 2023 with international travel? Petra mentioned the flight issue, the on-time flight issues. Sometimes it doesn't seem like that big a deal, but you have to remember that leisure travelers really like easy trips, and when you put these barriers, even if it just seems like a 2-hour delay, it makes you, I can just get on the bus and go to Portugal or something. There are easier alternatives, and it does push people back from taking those trips. And the other part is this is always in the news there, so it's on people's mind. I had similar experiences in Amsterdam. That's just it's in the newspaper all the time there, how bad the flights are. China, I already kind of mentioned a couple of these things, but when are these lockdowns, particularly the travel lockdowns, going to end? And can we get that economy up and running again and get more traveling households out there? On the U.S. side, how strong will the U.S. dollar get? We do see it getting stronger in the near future, as again we think the U.S. is going to fare better than a lot of the advanced economies. So that's going to continue to prop up the dollar in the future, make U.S. trips more expensive. And finally, a quick talk about Canada. As we say, most other countries, we're seeing a more severe recession than the U.S. That's our forecast. So how bad does it get? The loonie has remained strong, in part due to their strong energy economy there. But does the loonie start to lose steam? The Canadian inbound market is very sensitive to changes in the exchange rate. So we hope to see the loonie remain strong. And I thought this was funny. So marketers apparently say revenge tourism. Economists say latent demand. I think it's the same concept, but there is built up demand. So like in Canada and most of the world, people have taken domestic trips, mainly pretty close to their home. So will the summer of 2023 be the time where they're sick of staying local? And you've got kids, you got to go to Disneyland. You haven't been to a big city, you want to see New York. So these trips that have been, or the Oregon coast, these trips that haven't been taken in the past couple of years, will they really blow up in the summer of 2023? Just a little bit about these flight problems that I mentioned. Here are airports with the highest % of delayed flights. I highlighted the Canadian airports in red, though. So it's largely a European and Canadian problem. You see, half the flights out of Pearson, Toronto Pearson, are delayed. So yeah, just a big headache. We're fortunate here that this is a big drive market for Canada, but just to point out, how bad this is at a lot of, we got London, Frankfurt, Paris, Munich, big cities, and they're just having these major problems getting these flights operating on time. And particularly a problem here, because especially from Europe, they're getting connections through other airports. So that's a huge deal in terms of getting to Oregon. Other side of the world, they're not having as much problems with delayed flights, but China, highlighted in red here, has a huge issue with canceled flights. So again, just a huge headache, with the lockdowns on travel coming out of China. Just makes it tough to plan your leisure vacation when you're dealing with these sort of cancellation rates. All right, switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk about Oregon's international tourism recovery looking forward, and I guess the U.S. as a whole as well. So here's our U.S. curve, kind of getting back to our 2025 number. So in 2020, we were at 24% of the pre-pandemic number, 28%, so a slight increase in 2021. And we see a big increase in the current year, and then finally a full recovery in visitation in 2025. So this is going to look a little strange, but while the U.S. as a whole had a better 2021, the numbers increased in 2021. The vast majority of states, including Oregon here, 2021 in blue, experienced declines in international visitation. The really easy explanation for why this happened is Mexico. Mexico compared to other countries, had a huge year in 2021. So if you're Texas, California, Arizona, New Mexico, you had a really good 2021. The other 46 states look a lot more like this, that the pre-pandemic travel, even though it was just 2.5 months or so, boosted 2021 numbers to the point that they're better, 2020 numbers to the point that they're better than 2021 numbers. But again, that's all behind us, and we're doing much better now. Here we are, again, looking at numbers over time in Oregon. Again, you'll see that decline in 2021, down 83% compared to 2019, but again, a big boost in 2022. Still a long way to go, down 43%, but definitely a stark improvement from where we have been. Petra mentioned, we see 2025 as the recovery year. This is the year where international visits are going to recover to the pre-pandemic level. We see Canada and Western Europe recovering a bit faster, Asia recovering a bit slower. Just looking kind of similar data now, just on a line chart here, but you see the recovery in total versus overseas international travel. Again, both recovering in 2025, total recovering faster because that includes Canada, which is a faster recovering market. And then looking at individual countries here, again, here is the Western Europe, Canada in red and blue versus the Asian markets in yellow and orange. So you see that big disparity we see occurring, again, partly because of that Chinese funk, partly because the Asian companies tend to be a little more wary of the pandemic. And this happened with SARS as well. So we see them. The current numbers suggest, again, we have most of the 2022 data we need. We have the summer travel, and again, they're just not coming back, even in places that have less restrictions. So we see them recovering slower in the long term. All right, the non-buzzkill segment of this presentation.
Please let there be more than one slide.
Despite how tough the past couple years have been, at Tourism Economics, we're huge believers in international tourism. And we think this illustrates why as much as anything. So this is middle and upper class household growth for a decade, 2019 through 29. So our number one predictor of travel isn't GDP growth or income growth, it's middle class household formation. So how many households do you have that have enough money to afford international travel? That's what boosts numbers, because people travel, not dollars. And the international markets are just gonna blow us away. We've seen explosive growth out of China for the past 20 years now, and there's still just so many people that are gonna go from that lower class life to the middle class life. We're calling that $35,000 US dollars a year in income. So there's just so many households that are still going to kind of cross that threshold and be able to afford international travel. I always pitch India, that India is going to blow up just like China did. It may be a few more years before we really see that happen, but it's going to happen. It's going to be really strong. And then just in general, most international countries are adding more of these households that will travel compared to the U.S. And, we've seen this play out in the past. Here's international and domestic tourism put on the same index over time. And, we've just seen international tourism, far outpace domestic tourism in the past. And it's going to take some time, but we do see that happening again in the future. So even after we kind of recover to our pre-pandemic level, it's still going to take a couple years before international growth kind of overtakes domestic growth. But, it will happen in the latter half of this decade. And, by the end of the decade, the international tourists are going to make a larger share of your market mix than they did before the pandemic. And we also remember that international travelers are more valuable, much, much more valuable than domestic travelers. They tend to stay longer, and they tend to spend more per day. So their economic footprint is just much, much better than a domestic traveler. They're also more likely to stay in hotels, so they generate that sweet TOT tax. And there are, again, paired with this longer length of stay, a lot of markets tend to really get out there and see the whole state. We're going to highlight UK and Germany as a couple of those that really branch out, do lots of activities, see lots of different destinations in the state. On that note, just a brief reminder, like just right before the pandemic, wonderful timing, we did a big blowout study of kind of the international travelers to Oregon, and we're trying to highlight a lot of the key factors. Like here is, there's the full report is out there, but here's people that the Japanese are really big hotel stayers. Indians tend to stay the longest in terms of total nights. So just info like this, like how long they're staying. Activity participation, so what types of markets, we created kind of an index based on what they were doing. There's full details in the report, but who are the history culture travelers versus the sports and outdoor travelers, the urban travelers. So yeah, just want you to know that information's out there. If, whenever you want a more in-depth look at the international travelers and what they're doing in Oregon. And just a few thoughts in conclusion. We keep saying this, every time there's a recession, everyone wants to talk about how everything is going to be different from now on, and we really caution against that. We think, by 2025, tourism in general is going to look a lot like it did pre-pandemic. Conferences are already, coming back strongly. We despite, a lot of people saying it's going to be all Zoom conferences from now on. Stuff like that, we really would caution against. Things are going to look a lot like they did before the pandemic soon. Again, China's really down. I'm really pumping China. They're going to be a huge growth market. It's going to take a while, but they were just behind Japan in terms of being your number one overseas market for visitors, and they're going to roar ahead of Japan by the end of the decade. But again, it might take a few years. And finally, we already have encouraging data from Canada. It's already bouncing back strongly. We do see that 2025 recovery, and we are going to hope for the revenge of the Canadian traveler as early as next summer. Yeah, and with that, I'd be happy to take any questions on the international traveler or the economy in general.
Jeff, thank you. We're so well served by you and by tourism economics in general, not only the work you do for us, but also the work you do for Brand USA and so many others. So thanks for joining us, first trip or not. We appreciate you being here in Oregon. It's good to just see you in person, my friend, so thank you for that. Commissioners, questions for Jeff or for Petra? Erin.
I just wanted to thank you, Jeff, for being the bearer of both good and bad news, and to say that I do not take any dollars from the Dutch government. But I got the warnings this summer as well that it was going to take 4 hours to get through Schiphol. My family got through in 20 minutes. So there's hope. There's hope that it really is getting better, and it's not as bad as the news makes it seem all the time. And I know you guys know that, but I'm also optimistic that things are going to get better on the international front, and that the airport situation is going to untangle, and we'll see the benefit from that. So thank you.
A lot of the issues too in Amsterdam are the charter flights this summer So it's not really like Portland on, Delta Airlines to Amsterdam. That's not really, it's like the connecting flight if you're going on like Orion Air or EasyJet or something like that. That's where some of the main issues are.
Yeah, David?
Yes, well, thank you as well. You really softened the blow quite well. It is quite interesting, as you pointed out, with what's happening, whether it be Germany or the rest of Europe, with Germany and the supplies there, winter will, it's going to be interesting. I've been following that as much as possible because it does have an impact on our business. But with China, you touched on the chips. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Taiwan actually produces, or they are the #1 producer of the chips. And so I'm assuming, are you lumping Taiwan in with China because?
No, I mean, Taiwan is a big producer, I think is the bigger producer than China, but, it still does occur in China. And then there's just so many other products they're making that need to get shipped over here. But
No question about it.
there's various lockdowns, and those get slowed down, and that carries over. Some of that gets carried over to manufacturing in the U.S., and some of it is, manufacturing in Japan, and then that doesn't get to the U.S. So, so integral to the global economy that these lockdowns and hiccups that keep happening there just end up creating a drag everywhere.
Yeah. And also, I agree with you in terms of India, and I'm very pleased to see that Brand USA, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Petra, but in 2023, they've already got plans with a couple missions over there, so that is a key market as well, and so that's exciting. But with that said, with all the things that we need to be cautious about, we still have to take a very, conservative approach, just due to all the factors that you pointed out earlier, whether it be the virus or what's happening in Europe or in Ukraine and other issues as well. So, but thank you for the update. He was right on the money.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Jeff, thank you very, very much. And Petra, thank you. I will invite Kevin and Katie to come on up for the next update. As they do, I just want to just pause for a moment, call it kind of a point of personal privilege. Oregon lost a giant last week, and just folks would describe him as, an advertising juggernaut, a visionary. I would just tell you that he's just a heck of a human being, and one of the finest folks I've had the pleasure of working with. I had the opportunity to meet Dan Wyden shortly after becoming director back in '96. The opportunity to have lunch together from time to time. Some of you may recall he's spoken at the Governor's Tourism Conference in the past. Always had a story. Always excited about the work that was going on for Oregon, and he never let go of being our chief, basically creative officer on our account. The Oregon work always went in front of Dan, and that was really important to him. And while I have stories I could tell you about Dan, either that I've heard from him or that I experienced firsthand, I think it's actually more fitting that you hear from Dan himself, and we've got a little video to share with you right now to do that.
Kevin, press play. I'm just kidding.
Do I hit play?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, God.
So there's a funny story.
It was about how If you know Dan, this is so like him to make us, to do that.
So there's a funny story.
And the story was about how the Oregon Things Look Different Here campaign was first born.
I think we had just signed a contract with Wyden & Kennedy.
And because it's new work, because it's a new relationship with an agency, because there's a new state tourism director, because there was some additional money that was added, so there were a lot of eyes on this campaign, the governor was brought in.
They met with Goldschmidt, and it was like Christmas Eve or some crazy time, and the weather was really bad, and they presented a bunch of lines to him.
Guess he wasn't in a great mood.
The governor was needing to get off to another occasion, so he was a little snippy about things.
And it's just not going well.
All these ideas are being thrown out there, and he's just not being receptive to anything. And then Dan said, hold on.
So he leans in and he goes, Governor, all the stuff we've been showing you, it's just for show. It's not the real work. Here's the real concept. Oregon. Shaped like Wyoming, but comes with a beach.
I don't really care if you've lived in Oregon for 5 minutes or if you're 8th generation. You're an Oregonian and you're here for a reason, and that's to really value place.
One of the things I love working on the brand is that it has a real impact on Oregonians.
I think the impact on the state is amazing. There's certainly, you can put a dollar number to it, which there's some research that shows that for every dollar we spend, there's like $14 or $15 back.
It was the first state to protect every inch of its coastline. The first state to stop litter with a bottle bill. The first state to clean up the air by banning fluorocarbons. The first state where it's the people that are spoiled, not the places.
So when we launched Oregon Things Look Different Here, there was a lot of people and media stories criticizing it, saying it wasn't grammatical or it didn't say anything. And I still, 30 years later, see organizations and businesses, and there's even a radio station that uses some piece of Oregon Things Look Different Here. And I think that's really a testament to how strong that statement was.
It's hard not to be really emotional about the Seven Wonders campaign because certainly we saw every region in the state hugely impacted by the sheer beauty of the physical assets of Oregon.
Mount Hood was left off the list. So was the Oregon coast. The Columbia River Gorge was somehow overlooked, as were the Painted Hills. Smith Rock and the Wallowas are both missing from it. All we can figure is whoever named the Seven Wonders of the world never set foot in Oregon.
The fact that we have this 30-year relationship, we have this partnership, we have this level of trust, and for me, whether it's your ad agency or the partners that you work with, trust breeds good work.
And again, it goes back to because Dan cares. And that's what made me care, because I didn't want to be the person who lost Oregon tourism account, because I know he would fire me.
This is where I grew up. This is where I learned about life. And this is where I've done the work I was destined to be.
I have heard some things, whether it's true or not, and that is that Dan Wyden has shared with the Wyden & Kennedy team that if they ever lose the Travel Oregon account, blood will spill and heads will roll.
Oregon, 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 Oregon.
Okay, so Frogs and Fish. Frogs and Fish is legendary Travel Oregon, Wyden & Kennedy collab work.
University of Oregon was in the Rose Bowl. And so we got some free advertising space, or we got some very heavily discounted advertising space. And, say if you give us a 30-second commercial, we'll run it.
And I think it was Glenn started doing voices with the animals, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, this is nice. Oregon rivers are so clean.
You know my uncle in the Rogue says the whole state's like this.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give this another shot.
The marketing landscape has changed dramatically, but while that landscape has changed, I don't know that our storytelling has changed that much in the time that I've been here. You know, we still try to tell authentic stories that we think are going to resonate with our audience in a truthful, honest way.
With all the clutter that you see in the tourism marketing world, we constantly need to look for ways to be innovative in terms of how we're showing off our beautiful state.
What I think Oregon Only Slightly Exaggerated does is it invites that visitor to rediscover their childhood sense of wonder, to find happiness, and to let that happiness bring them to Oregon.
Especially with that Oregon Symphony soundtrack, I still get little goosebumps. I saw one comment was, I don't even know what this is, but I want to come to Oregon. I was like, I don't think it gets any better than that.
It's Oregon, with a very fantastical twist. A sense of whimsy and quirkiness and all those kinds of things have always made Oregon, Oregon. But it's done in a way that lets them find some happiness and joy again. And let that carry them to Oregon for their next great vacation destination.
Typical travel Oregon, right? I mean, it's, but it's such a testament to Dan. We often joked, and I teased Dan about this, that Nike may have been their largest client, and they may have been their first client. And we weren't exactly pro bono, but we were what we always called low bono. We were probably 0.0001% of total billings for that agency in a good year. But this work mattered to Dan a lot. So whether it was talking salmon or it's giant bunny rides, Dan always retained that position of the importance of this work and wanting to always be the creative director on this work. And the line that Kevin shared is true, because working for a public agency, as Wieden and Kennedy was doing, working for us, is not necessarily easy, because every few years, like it or not, you've got to go out and bid on the work. And we're running the RFP process, and it's not the same as when you're working for Nike or you're working for fill in the blank other company that Wieden and Kennedy was working with. And so our account executives would have a tough time keeping morale high sometimes within Wieden and Kennedy, because they're having to bid. Early on, it was every 2 years. The contracts were every 2 years. So you know, you think it's hard now, Kevin and Katie. I just want you to know, it used to be every 2 years. And it's not. The rules have changed since then. I'm talking 1988, 34 years ago, that we've been working with Wieden and Kennedy. But keeping the morale high when you're having to, you know, you launch a campaign and then you're back pitching the same business again, was tough. And so our account executive at the time brought everybody together that touched the account. Everybody, the media, the strategists, the creatives, everybody together. And Dan Wieden and David Kennedy were both in the meeting. And for 45 minutes, the account exec worked hard to impress upon the team how important this work was, and trying to just get everybody galvanized, ready for the pitch. And at the end, the account exec turned to Dan and said, Dan, is there anything you want to add? And that's where Dan, probably without even moving out of his chair, said, remembering they've sat there 45 minutes listening to the account exec, just said, if we lose this account, heads will roll and blood will fly. And it's like, and the meeting's adjourned. So and everybody left, and the rest is history. And they continue to, as we do the RFPs and such, bid that work. But we have truly lost a giant. We've lost a great friend to Oregon. One of Dan's, he's just a great human. As I said earlier, he. Some of you that may recall East Lake Resort over in Central Oregon. Dan went in and bought that and turned it into an arts camp, a retreat, because he believed that all kids, all youth, especially inner city kids that may not have the opportunity otherwise, should be exposed to the arts and have that opportunity to tap into their own inner creativity. So he created Caldera, if you've heard of the Caldera that's over in Central Oregon, so, which is just a beautiful program and a testament to Dan himself. So I will miss him greatly, but would have let an opportunity slip by had we not just paused for a moment to recognize what he's meant to us at Travel Oregon, what he's meant to the entire travel and tourism industry, and certainly what he means to us as Oregonians. So, Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Todd. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'll just add to that that's, I think, why I'm in Oregon is because of, if you read about online and kind of read the posts about what people say about Dan and how he was like a gravitational pull for people, creatives, people in the advertising agency, and my wife was one of those people that said, I just need to go work there. And so I guess we're moving to Portland then. And that's what we did. And how lucky I am to have stumbled into definitely the greatest ad agency in the world, and to have Dan be our creative director and learn from him and learn from the team. Pretty lucky. So anyway, glad we had that opportunity to share that video. That stands the test of time for sure. So, good afternoon, commissioners. Today you have myself, Katie Clare, our Director of Marketing Services. Brian usually pops down from the ceiling at some point, our Insights and Planning Manager. We're going to share an advertising update, and just because of the timing, we're going to be sharing past work, current work, and future work, because that's where we're in the middle right now. I got to drive? All right. So we're currently in the third pulse of our advertising strategy for the calendar year. That's the fall effort of Extraordinary is Ordinary, also known as ESO, which launched on September 19th. Just as a reminder, to level set, we've designed our work to leverage the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that was the World Athletic Championships, Oregon 22, that was brought to the state this summer. Brian will review our summer campaign and how it performed. And after that, Katie will provide an overview of our paid media strategy for the fall campaign, which leverages the new ESO creative and how we plan to re-engage with those audiences that we cultivated during the summer campaign. And we'll close with an update on our strategic direction for spring 23. And with that, I will pass it over to Brian to talk about summer results. Whoa.
Oh, hey.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, commissioners. Let's dive into some of the high-level results for our Extraordinary is Ordinary summer campaign.
Brian, just as an FYI, we can't see the slides right now, so we'll see if we can.
Yeah, I'm seeing two of my faces, so it's a pretty good start for the morning. Should I keep going or wait till the slides come up?
Let's give it just a second, see if they can cue.
All righty.
Yes, now we have slides. Thanks.
Okay, let's do it. Alrighty, here you'll see the high-level details surrounding our recent advertising campaign. The primary differences to call out here compared to prior campaigns are these. First, as approved in the June commission meeting, we added incremental dollars to the budget to better boost our reach for Oregon 22. Second, with that boosted budget, we were able to add 3 new stretch markets to the buy to complement our primary media markets. And finally, our campaign flight at 5 weeks is shorter than usual due to a concentrated effort to surround Oregon 22. You will hear more about these points when I review the key learnings from the campaign shortly. With all our campaigns, there is always a balance of awareness and traffic or conversions. Awareness is us focusing on getting as many people thinking about Oregon as a travel destination as possible, while traffic and conversion is focused on getting potential visitors to traveloregon.com to plan a trip or to order a guide. Depending upon our goals, we will shift the balance in one direction or the other. This being an awareness-driving campaign, video ads were heavily featured as they remain an excellent format for driving awareness. Unlike our Oregon Slightly Exaggerated or OSE videos, those were long-form videos at around 1 minute and 30 seconds to 1 minute and 45 seconds, while our ESO showcased 3 separate 30-second featured videos. Our water, rocks, and soil videos allowed us to prolong the storytelling by staggering the launch of each video. Ultimately, across all video lengths, we generated 64 million video views in our 5-week campaign. Next slide. Complementary to awareness is traffic or conversions. Once people are aware of and excited about Oregon, we want them to engage with us on traveloregon.com. Because of that, our second most important key performance indicator, or KPI, from an advertising perspective is sessions generated from advertising clicks. We know from prior campaigns tracked by Arrivalist, who is a company we use to provide insight on consumer behavior, that travelers who see our ads and then visit our website are 3.4 times more likely to travel to Oregon than those just seeing our ads or website in isolation. Sessions generated from campaign advertising dollars generated 470,000 sessions, which represented a 23% increase over traffic generated from OSE 3. The Extraordinary is Ordinary campaign showcased the surprising and delightful elements that make Oregon extraordinary. Throughout the campaign, we received both positive and negative responses across all of our platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. But the bulk of the responses came from Instagram. As we managed expected negative sentiment around Portland, the new permitting systems, and Travel Oregon sharing of locations, we were surrounded with the overwhelming amount of positivity for our campaign and our community, as the numbers showcase here. Michelle Outdoors mentioned, all the rocks. I can't wait to visit here one day. And Disco Sonic chimed in with, talk about targeted advertising. I have never felt so seen by an ad before. And let's move on to our key learnings now. So what did we learn from our most recent campaign? Well, first and foremost, our strategy to align the campaign with the World Athletic Championships in Eugene proved to be very successful. We were able to leverage the excitement surrounding the event and Oregon in general. The event went on to crush the previous domestic viewership record set in London by 65%, which ultimately led to a 331% over delivery in national TV impressions for ESO, coming in at 71 million. I should also note that we expect the international viewership numbers sometime later this fall. Secondly, we had to condense our campaign flight from the typical 8 to 10 weeks to 5 weeks to better align with Oregon 22. We launched our campaign 3 weeks prior to the event, through the event dates, and then through the end of July for a total of 5 weeks in market. To maximize our continued economic recovery from the pandemic, we had a hefty investment in advertising for this campaign and a rather condensed timeline. With this in mind, we had to be careful not to oversaturate the market with too many ads, while still combating potential increases in costs from such a narrow timeline. While this is a good problem to have, and one we will probably not be faced with again, we gained a better handle on the opportunities and limitations of running such a large budget through such a tight window. Next, due to the increased budgets and a more nationally aligned campaign, we tested 3 new markets that look promising from our data and our research. In the end, these new opportunity markets perform similarly or better than our standard West Coast markets in terms of engagement. We did see that our costs were a little higher than our standard markets since our overall audience size for the opportunity markets was narrower than our standard markets. This can be overcome in the next campaign by broadening our opportunity market slightly, by expanding from a city level targeting to a state level targeting, especially for social media. And lastly, the research team is working with Focusrite to field an ad accountability study to better measure the return on investment for our ESO campaign and evaluate the perceptions of Oregon as a travel destination. The short-term impacts for summer will be available early next year, and we will also conduct a similar study to measure our current fall campaign. And with that, I'll pass it back to Katie.
Thanks, Brian. All right. I think we can just go back. There we go. Right. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to tell you about our current advertising spend behind the Extraordinary is Ordinary Creative. So that's the same three assets of rocks, water, and soil that we had as our hero creative for the summer. We are reusing that creative as our hero creative for this fall. I think as Kevin mentioned, the strategy is really to retarget and remarket to those that were exposed in what we call broad awareness. And that's really that basic exposure of we want them to see the ad and to associate the Travel Oregon logo and brand with that work, so that then we can come in and through the layers of paid media, which includes like Google search and different tactics, as well as social media, which you'll hear me talk about, just have that consistent drumbeat of the Travel Oregon brand. So it's a layered approach, which we'll get into, but this is part of this fall effort we're really excited about because it has a real key focus on traffic to traveloregon.com and what we're considering conversions, which is everything from overnight stays with OTAs, and again, I'll hop into this a little bit more in the next slide, but also sweepstakes entries and different things like that. Our budget is $1.75 million. This is a continued trend that our team will continue to focus on in the future of a higher spend during the shoulder season. This is one of our largest fall buys that we've had. We are still focusing, as I think many of you are aware, and if not, you'll hear Kevin talk a little bit more about this as well. All of our targeting for these campaigns is towards our active adventurer. So you'll see this is making sure that it is traits in different sectors that we pull through research, that we make sure that we're targeting people that want to come to Oregon to have a great experience of culinary and outdoor experiences. The summary is like, we're not trying to get the same person that wants to go to Las Vegas for 10 days. We want the person that wants to come to Oregon to experience place. So we have the active adventurer. You'll see here we have our secondary lens for that target, which is the BIPOC and LGBTQ plus. So what we're able to do there is then through certain types of media, make sure that we're reaching those markets. That's an entirely different presentation that we could talk about for 25 minutes sometime, I'm sure. Then, like Brian mentioned, we are still focusing on our primary West Coast markets, and then we are continuing to engage with those opportunity markets. When we say opportunity, that's because these are markets that we haven't reached in the fall before. We saw the success during the summer. We're looking at how we reach them in the fall. For some of these tactics in social and search primarily, we're not just reaching Houston and San Diego, for instance, we're expanding to all of Texas and all of Southern California, just based off of what we learned. So that's reaching all active adventurers in those areas, not necessarily all of Texas. So we launched on Monday, September 19th, which is great, and then we're going to be running this paid effort through the middle of November, right before Thanksgiving, when we'll transition to more of the Thanksgiving wine country focus and into the holiday shopping season. All right, so like we said, for the paid media targets for this and what our advertising tactics are, we are focusing on driving traffic to traveloregon.com. We are still have about 30% of our buy is focused on awareness and video views, but this campaign is all digital video, and you see here it says OTT. What that means is it's literally like the over-the-top television. It's a very literal term in paid media, so it's like Do you remember when you had the first like Roku or Apple TV? It was like literally on the top of your television. That's what that refers to. So if you do any kind of streaming, we're in those platforms. Digital videos, like when you're watching YouTube or things like that. And we can see here, we say this is moving down the funnel from the video awareness, driving down to the paid social, and then we have the remarketing and the leads. So this campaign's traffic driving, awareness and video views, and then conversions. So hoping to really get people here, and especially during the shoulder season. And the only other thing I'll just say is that the last thing is that for a part of this campaign, about 30% of this buy is a direct retargeting of people that had exposure to our ads this summer. So we know for a fact that they did see the ad and then were able to be re-exposed. We were also really intentional in working with partners that we had bought with in the summer. If they had tactics that aligned with our goals, we made sure to rebuy with them. So even though it might not have been I'm just thinking cookies. I can't think of the word right now. Anyways.
Pixels. Pixels.
Yes, even though if it's not a pixel placement, then we know we have a pretty good understanding that they have had exposure to our ads before. But these campaigns aren't just those broad video and hero creative assets. For all of our campaigns, we have those layered tactics. And in the case of our advertising, this includes a lot of informative content of either how to have a great and responsible trip if you're having an outdoor experience, or how to make sure that you're timing your trip right to have the best fall bounty of like, when are the apples going to be in season? When should you start planning your trips on some of the farm trails, things like that. So this is some of the content that I just wanted to walk through that you see with each of these campaigns. So for this campaign, we're going to be doing on social media, we have our infographics that we create. I have some that are in development right now that I'll share on the next slide of what's coming up. But we use these a lot for both outdoor recreation experiences. So this fall, it's going to be like how to have a great storm watching experience, which is how to do it, where to go, how to patron businesses, but also resources for being responsible so that you don't go over a fence or things like that. Just maybe things people might do. What we've also found is that last year during our Only Slightly Exaggerated campaign, we did a lot of broad awareness. We had our largest fall buy to date, which was over a $3 million buy for the Only Slightly Exaggerated 3, if you guys remember. The gorgeous Pendleton Roundup creative and different things, all of that. What we found with that is that we really need to have a really clear and strong call to action to drive the email subscribers and getting people on site. And so what we launched, and we mentioned yesterday, is that we also launched the fall a sweepstakes that's going to be that launched a week and a half ago in partnership with Mount Hood Railroad and the Fruit Company. So that sweepstakes is going live with that real clear, strong call to action. That's across social media and all of our paid media partners. Last couple of things I just want to mention real fast is that when we talk about targeting for the BIPOC and DEI audiences, we've been really intentional with creating and translating our ads into Spanish. And then that also allows us to have clear targeting within the Hispanic and Latino audiences that we're able to have some pretty great data about. And that we can see if, I'm not sure if, I can't remember if it's in the commission report, but we also can see one-to-one the engagement and traffic to the translated content on TravelOregon.com campaign pages. So we're going to continue to do that, and we have this with this campaign. Last thing is that we're also working with influencers, and what that allows us to do is it allows us to reach diverse audiences that Travel Oregon might not have connected with before. We take our creative and our campaigns and we work with the influencers really of like, how would you experience this trip? Like, what would you do and how do you think your audience will connect? And allow them to build that. So just creating that brand trust and consistency, because again, it's like, we don't know. So let's work with people that do know and create, again, like authentic connections. So we have 3 influencers, one for rocks, one for water, one for soil. This is Luz, who also runs Latinx Hikers, and she's going to be working for the Rocks Creative. We have a couple others, including like one of our favorites we worked with before, Hey Candace, that's going to be for the other 2 pieces of creative. So those trips are going to be coming up, and we'll have those on our channel soon. the last thing, just a little bit of the tease of what's next. You can see here the experiences that you have. So this is the digital video. You can see the translated end card with our disclaimer that we needed to have for the Extraordinary Oregon campaign in Spanish. We've rolled out all of the digital video, which includes the surrounding display, so we can really get people to plan today, take their trips soon. We have the giveaway, the reels that are launching, and then we have the different infographics that are coming up, which includes the mushroom foraging, storm watching, and then the sleeper hit of the summer, I call it, the train content. We'll continue to push more of that. So this is just what we'll be doing this fall. We're seeing some really great and strong results so far. The traffic to TravelOregon.com is really high, which is something that we're always just pleased to see. Kind of shows how some of these tactics are working. So with that, I went probably very long, but it's really exciting. Here's Kevin.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, the first 2 weeks of data that are coming in are very promising from the fall campaign. So we're happy to see the traffic. And as Todd had mentioned, I'm glad we're not doing an RFP right now, because as we're launching and executing this campaign, we've been talking about spring 23 for the last 3 or 4 months. So I want to bring you up to speed with those conversations and where we're at in the creative process, which is really the foundational work of our advertising campaigns that's really going to support the industry's 10-year strategic vision. So to develop compelling creative that will propel our industry forward, it's important that we align our advertising and marketing with the destination stewardship approach. This three-pronged approach seeks to balance and meet the economic, environmental, and social cultural needs of a destination. As we develop new creative, we'll employ 3 lenses to guide our direction: prosperity, racial equity, and the regenerative tourism lens. Like any good travel guide, these lenses help ask us questions, the right questions, so the journey is thoughtful, it's thoughtfully planned, and we can successfully reach our destination. And so when it comes to our audience, we continue to seek ways to make deeper connections with our active adventures. Katie spoke to that a little bit in her slide, in her section, but the things that we're doing is, we shared with you in June, really, we did a deeper dive on where it starts in the beginning with the creative process and having those perspectives built into the actual development of the creative. And then it comes to our impressions and the media buying. We look at each of the markets that we're in and look at the demography of those markets and make sure our impressions are lining up with that based on census data. But I think the real thing, and again, Katie spoke to, is that authenticity. And so the techniques that we use there, the tactics that we employ, are putting a lot of energy and resources into converting not only the ads, but the content to Spanish, into Spanish. Custom content is working with minority-owned media buyers or media platforms where they take our content and then put it out there to their audience in a way that their audience is going to be receptive to. And influencers is similar to that, working with influencers who can speak in an authentic way to their audience. And I think that component is the most, is hardest and most time-consuming, but it's the most important. It's where we make those deeper connections. So we're going to continue to look for ways to make those deeper connections through our authentic work. All right. So where are we at? And what I want to share with you today is the strategic territory. This is the step that informs the creative elements of the upcoming campaign. The strategic territory is the next step after the brief and research has been digested. This is where the creative team is brought in to come up with a platform that delivers on the brief or the problem we're trying to solve. A good example, to put it in terms of kind of a prior campaign, or thinking back to Oregon Slightly Exaggerated, and we will launch that. The finding in that during that time was people were stressed out. The 24-hour news cycle, constant connection to the digital world. The strategic territory that we explored there led us to the OSE, Oregon Slightly Exaggerated, creative platform that positioned Oregon as an antidote from our natural landscapes, as that antidote to the stresses of everyday life. So that's how that played out for that campaign. As the strategic territory is defined, we lean into what we know. In our case now, it's hard to feel welcome in a place you've never been. And that aligns with research and goals within our brand. Oregonians are eager to share the state with you. In this case, we're finding opportunities to tap into Oregonians' passions, whether it's being a winemaker or an angler or a brewer or a winemaker or cheesemaker. So the strategic territory we're exploring, this place is not really easily forgotten. It has a way of sticking with you, lingering in your imagination long after you visit. It's why so many have come to love, enjoy, and steward it. Because when you see Oregon up close, when you feel it firsthand, it changes you, wins you over. You sing its praises. You're captured by it. You want to care for it with every step you take. From coast to mountain to valley, sleepy town to bustling city, this place is full of things you can't help but want to tell someone else about. And once you experience Oregon firsthand, you want to share it too. Point of view, you can't keep Oregon to yourself. So just a reminder, this is not a campaign. That POV is not a tagline, but it will inform both of those things as we get into more into the creative platform. And this idea kind of reminds us of a concept that we talk about a lot at Travel Oregon. The impact the destination has and the people have on our visitors. And, our hope, we feel that we've done a good job if when that visitor goes home, they feel a little bit more Oregonian in the way they behave and who they are. So that, to me, speaks to kind of that notion that we talk about a lot at Travel Oregon. So here is an overview of the creative process. We're still in the strategy square. Next, we'll confirm the big idea and then bring it to life by building out the creative details and execution across all of Oregon's channels. I expect we'll be able to share with you the big idea at our next commission meeting. Now I'll pass it back to Katie to share how we see this rolling out.
There might be a part of that big idea that involves someone that's presenting singing, and I'm glad that Kevin has done the big presentation this time.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
So to wrap this up, as we're currently heading into fall, just to share a little perspective of what you'll see from us and just the expectations of the next calendar year is that you're going to see this real steady and clear approach of what we call always-on advertising. This is something that we've had that is on currently. We expect this to increase. We call this low funnel engagement. These are people it's our SEO, it's our search strategy. So when people are searching for Travel Oregon on Google and things like that, we want to be there as a resource. So we'll continue to do that. And then we're going to continue to have partnerships with online travel agencies, with OTAs. So those are some things. This also includes having paid media on for social media available as well. So I think as anyone has experience with social media, if you don't have paid, then you really don't have a presence. And so we found that we need to have that as an always-on tactic. So as we look at campaigns, part of the evolution that we're heading towards before COVID and we're heading back towards is we're going to have a real pulsed approach. So you've typically seen us have hero creative that we work really hard to have regional equity in, to represent a lot of different niches and experiences. What we're looking for and what we are excited to present is going to be more of an evergreen campaign system where we'll be able to have more pulsed creative and smaller pieces of creative that will be able to be produced more easily than the ESO and OSE work took 9 to 12 months to create. We want to have a shorter time frame. So we anticipate having things that might speak to places like the Gorge in January through March, but not advertise them in July, for instance. So we will have regional equity throughout the calendar fiscal year, but you might see different regions or different niches featured at different times. So just kind of setting the table a little bit for that. We expect to have work out this spring, but then also have clear media pulses throughout the fiscal year. Just as an FYI2, we're going to be working. We will once again have the Give the Gift of Oregon this holiday season. That seems to just be one of our, what I consider like always on, not campaign, but paid advertising pulses that we work with our regional and different key partners like Oregon Wine Board and different, to make sure that we have the content that we need to remind people to either buy Oregon experiences, travel someplace to shop, or to send like a fruit basket, for instance, to one of their loved ones. So that's what you see coming up from us, and can't wait to share a little bit more in December.
All right.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Brian, wherever you are.
All right. Well, thanks, team. Great update. Commissioners, questions or comments for?
I just had two comments.
please.
First comment, congratulations to Kevin and team for winning the Mercury Award for the Digital Campaign of the Year at the ETSO conference. So congratulations to you. Second, let's clap. Kevin, I don't know if you want to give a little insight into that. I don't know if the rest of the group knows it, what that award was for, that campaign.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the first part of what you said.
Sorry, I don't know if you want to give a little insight into that campaign to the group.
Yeah, so we endearingly call VLM, the Visitor Lifecycle Management Program, and I'm glad Brian is on the in the space, because Brian has really been the champion and executor of that program, and that's another presentation in and of itself. But essentially, the concept is, how do we identify where consumers are? You hear us talk about a lot about the funnel being, Brian's here. That idea of
Don't mess it up,
inspiration.
Kevin. You
I'm
got
thinking
this.
about Oregon as a place, to I'm actively planning, to I've been and I had a wonderful time and now I want to share. And so identifying where, I should have had you share this, Brian, so you can correct me as I stumble through, but identifying where our visitors are within that funnel while they're on traveloregon.com or within our platforms, and then using that information to serve them relevant content based on their trip. On their status. So if you're still thinking about it and you're into beer, we might be sending you some inspirational content. If you're coming in 2 weeks, we may know that and be like, okay, maybe you're moving into lodging now. So the team has created what we call the nurture stream, which is tracking visitors through. So a simple way of looking at it, we like to say there's so much technology that we can use, that marketers can use, that can actually be creepy. But our intent is pure, and that is only to help our visitors. Seriously, we just want to be able to serve you content. If you're into beer, we want you to know where the beer. If you're into cheese, we want to be able to give you that kind of personalized information. So, it's been a journey, and we're really starting to, the back end work has been 2 or 3 years, if not longer. And we're really now getting some traction. And Brian, if you want to add anything to that, Brian, again, has been really the mastermind behind the back end work.
I just have a question on that. Does it work the other way around? So if I'm on the Willamette Valley Wineries Association website, can you guys capture me? And okay, it doesn't work. Yeah, I've got to be on the
Just on our site.
Okay, Brian, can you work on that? Let's get more creepy. Dig in.
I keep telling Kevin not to use the word creepy, but it still sits in there much more than I'd like. But we're looking, especially with the death of the cookie coming up here and the end of third-party pixels, we're going to have to put a lot of strength into what are called second-party pixels, and that would be the work that we would do with the RDMOs and other other DMOs to try to gather some of that information and lead data from our partner sites as well. So that's definitely something that we're working on. Without Ariana's help and all of the back end work, it's one thing to have the idea, but to be able to put it all together is another thing. So, it's kind of a team effort for us, and I really want to also highlight Ariana's work within this as well. But I think, Kevin, you hit it right on the head. We like to think of it, the VLM program, as kind of the retention side of the business. We put a lot of dollars into the acquisition with our big marketing campaign. So once those people and potential visitors get to traveloregon.com, let's not stop talking to them. So let's get them on the email list. Let's have them order a guide, and let's continue to help them through the trip planning process. So we have a series of emails within our nurture stream to help push people to the next phase of the life cycle. So whether they're in the planning phase, the booking phase, they're actively traveling in Oregon, like what would they need to know while they're here in state? And then how do we re-engage with them after they leave and get them to come back on another trip? So that's kind of what we've been focusing on, and what the good folks at Esto decided was a good idea. So we're happy with our win, and we're not going to stop there, and we'll continue innovating as we move forward.
If I can, I think it's really important to point out no other DMO, state or local, that I'm aware of is doing anything like this. Nobody's doing anything like the VLM. This opportunity to create, as both Kevin and Brian have referred to it as this nurture stream, this ability to walk with our visitors wherever they may be in that process. As commissioners noted, and some of you in the room that if you've downloaded the strategic plan progress report may have noted that the pilot of this in what would traditionally be referred to as a shoulder season generated almost $1 million in new visitor spending, new incremental visitor spend. Just our ability to be able to, like I said, walk with visitors as they go through the process. So this is not an insignificant undertaking. I think it's something that's truly going to set our work apart. I think it's so consistent with what we talk about in terms of our strategic vision, because we have that opportunity to speak to visitors year-round, encouraging shoulder season travel, encouraging them to visit other places in the state that are consistent with what their interests are, But they may think of the breweries in one part of the state, but they may not know that there's breweries in every part of the state, or wineries in every part of the state, or fishing guides in every, the opportunity to be able to expose them to that is currently relatively untapped. And we're just right on the cusp of that. So the other thing I love about this project, and this team has heard me say this before, and I know they share it, is the fact that it represents the totality of our work. The content that we're sharing as we walk with the visitors through this process is content that's being developed by the destination development team when they're working with communities to develop food trails, or it's the investments that are made by the GSP team through the grant program, or it's work that's being done by our RDMO partners through the RCTP program and products that they're developing and such, that all become part of the content that we are then able to share with our visitors. So cannot overstate enough how important I think this program is going to be for our future work, and the fact that, again, Travel Oregon's on the cutting edge here. Nobody else is doing anything like this, so bravo, team. So.
Sorry, there was a part 2. This is much quicker. Remind me, why Spokane as your primary market? We've talked about Spokane before, but could you remind me why you target that area?
Oh, that's a bigger question. We need Michael in the room, or maybe Katie can, as far as like the data that goes into choosing. There's probably 6, there's the visitor profile, where are they coming from? And we move. I know we've gone kind of back and forth between Boise, I'm sorry, I'm thinking Tri-Cities over on the Idaho side. I'd have to get back to you and give you here's the 3 or 4 criteria, unless these guys have it off the top of their head.
I just assumed it was going to be why not, so.
It's Gonzaga. I think that's the real answer. It's Gonzaga.
With all of our target markets, I think there's just a couple things to consider is the propensity to travel, the return on spend, and our ability to reach the market. And so when you look at markets like Spokane and Boise, it's like we're advertising the whole state. There's different entrance points in the states. We're focusing on drive markets so that by reaching a Spokane market, there's a lot of ability to reach quite a wide audience within that area as well. And then also we know that University of Portland basketball team is considerably, you can see a little Gonzaga rivalry there. But so that's, like Kevin said, we have considered if we're Boise or Tri-Cities, you'll see those at different points. I mean, there also is a lot of opportunity within that market, within a reasonable spend within our budget, so.
Thank you.
And
At the risk of making this even slightly more on the nose, Kevin, why that choice of socks today?
As a famous Hood River winemaker once shared with me, why not?
There it is. There it is. Any other questions or comments for Kevin, Katie, and Brian?
On a similar side, the opportunity markets, are those correlating with flights to the state in general or Portland?
We absolutely considered that with the availability of flights and the opportunities to travel, the ease of that. There's so many layers that we look at because there's some that you might think of like, well, why not Denver or Salt Lake too? Like those are easy answers, but we considered the alignment with our exposure with the active adventure market, the return on spend when they do visit, and a couple things. So that is one of those layers.
Perfect. And one of them is like we can look at OTAs and go in and say, oh, how many people are searching for flights from different markets is another layer that we look at.
All right. Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Mr. Bricker, you and Walla, come on up.
Yeah, with guest.
Yes. Commissioners, our final presentation for this morning, our last update for today, is going to be program review of our work in the Destination Ready program. And it's great to have Scott here as our interim VP of Destination Development and being joined by Wella with the economic team there in Columbia County. Well, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Scott?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Chair Boyles, members of the commission, it's great to be back. I like to close out these meetings for you all, so hopefully this is, and actually my name is Disco Sonic. I really love the marketing program. Yeah, Scott Bricker, interim vice president at Destination Development. So I guess I need to hit arrows. Perfect. Great. Well, I am here to provide you with an update of the Destination Development's and Travel Oregon's Destination Ready program. Yesterday, you heard us talk about our tourism management studio in the Columbia Gorge, which we did back in 2016. And that is our longest format program. We've done that twice, once in the Gorge and once in the North Coast. And it's a long format program because there's challenging issues. We need to engage deep members of the community, a lot of stakeholders, and it's complex and it takes time to really think through that, really incubate that work. Over the pandemic, and we have a number of different levels of programming we do at Destination Development. Over the pandemic, when we launched the Rebuild Plan, which we're still in today and moving through, the Destination Development team recognized that we wanted to do things a little bit more quickly. We needed to do and to provide more aid and support to communities. And we wanted to, as we've been calling it, flatten the development curve and really to support bolstering key tourism products and experiences that would aid in recovery. So back in 2020-21, and I have shared this information, but just a quick recap, we launched the Destination Ready program, which effectively was an advised grant program. And we awarded 35 grants that totaled almost $1 million. And this was actually before the grants team and helped inform, and we collaborated with the grants team on this. But the grant program that was discussed yesterday, that was very highly subscribed at the pandemic. And it was similar things around outdoor recreation, main streets. The grants team added ticketed events, which was a fantastic ad. And so we really focused on, again, bolstering communities to help get through COVID. There were a couple of aspects that I actually wanted to call out. One is that we actually funded with an application from the Hood Gorge DMO, the hop-on, hop-off trolley that was run by David in the Gray Line. We helped provide some initial seed funding for that, so that was really exciting. We also, another example of a project is we helped fund some volunteer stewardship events along the McKenzie area, as well as some subsequent events on the Willamette. And after the presentation, I'm actually going to hand out some key lessons that we learned from some of our volunteer stewardship information. It's also available on our website. And also when you hear from Wella, who's going to give her overview from Columbia County, you may hear her affectionately talk about Destination Ready 1.0 or the first round. They also received some awards, but they were part of the more recent round that I'm going to dive deeper into right now. Oh, I need to hit the arrow on this computer. So in 2021-22, we wanted to get back a little more to our roots that focus on community engagement. And so we, with the same focus under the rebuild plan of supporting, bolstering key experiences, products, sustainability that would aid in recovery, we launched a shorter, flatter curved engagement program with communities. We received 29 applications. We engaged with 11 communities in the process to help develop quick burn strategic visioning and action planning to help create projects and provide technical assistance to implement those projects. The 11 communities you can see here on the board. I know we have Visit McMinnville in the room. We have some of these other folks in the room, and we'll also be hearing from Willa. So again, thank you for coming down for the meeting today. And we continue today to work with those communities towards implementation of the projects. Basically, what we aim to do is in the process is that we started out with the data collection process, where we worked with our research team and some consultants that we hired, SIR out of Virginia. We developed a baseline report process where we pulled data from our data that we had, as well as pull the steering committees. Again, we're always invited in, so the steering committees of the applicants. And then we provided them with a baseline report. We then developed a destination-ready assessment, and I'll dive in a little deeper into that, scratch the surface of what that looks like. And then following up, we aim to provide technical assistance through consultants to help them with implementation. That could include grant writing and getting financial awards, as well as implementation. And we're trying to, again, connect them with grants that could be through the Travel Oregon Grant Program or through other grants. And we really want to, as was talked about yesterday with capacity, support growing that capacity at the DMO level. The timeline looks something like this. It was a pretty quick process for us. We developed it starting really in the fall of last year. We had the destination intake process. We really kicked it off in January. We worked through the spring. We finished the reports in the late spring, early summer. Summer hit and things did slow down, and now we're really moving towards implementation of some of those projects. So just some quick snapshots for you. Again, we tried to get data that we thought would be relevant and local. So for example, Columbia County, they know already, but we talked about in some of the data about how people stay in homes because there aren't a lot of lodging properties, and you'll hear that that's one of the things that came out of that report, or other kinds of insights that we could pull. Really at the destination level, destinations really want as local data as possible. So our research team, and I think you've heard about this, but has some great new tools where you can actually draw polygons around a specific destination, and then they can, using basically GPS and mobile data, collect data, and then once you have those pings, you can, kind of like was also talked about earlier, you can get a lot of rich data out of that. So it was exciting to partner with them on that in a research report. And then this is just like a sample of the kind of engagement process. We were all on Zoom when we did this. So we were using different types of online technology to engage members of steering committees, to really ask them in the process, what are your, really in your destination, what are your primary lures? What are your secondary lures? What do people know about you? Why do they come? Why else, what are the secondary things? And what are the additional assets that you have? So you can think about that for a place that you might identify with. And so we help run them through that process. With the end goal of having basically 2 hub and spoke models, a design that actually some of our partners in Virginia have used, and we kind of worked with them and their consultant. We wanted to test out that model, so we give a little credit over to them. But basically a destination level hub and spoke. Again, what is your primary lure? The Columbia River. What are some of the secondary aspects, outdoor recreation or whatnot you might have in your community? And then the second hub and spoke is more about what we do to move those forward. So what is a short-term projects? What are some 1-2 year projects we can do? 3-5 and some game-changing projects. And we have this packaged up in a report that can be handed out to decision makers, to the community, whatnot. And then as that, we kind of did more detail on specific projects. So this is just a sample of like more details on the specific projects. So towards completions, there were 45 projects that were identified in the 11 communities. We're going to work with some of those communities, again, to seek grant funding, provide technical assistance. And I think that there are really 15 projects that we think are moving forward in the shortest term, but many of these others are queued up for kind of more the 2-year time frame. But there's real work going forward to implement some of these projects. Jeff and I last night were talking about in Visit McMinnville how they're moving forward on some of the bike work that they were really pushing through the Destination Ready program. So that was exciting. And then we heard from the participants that they would recommend this process to others. They thought that it was high ratings for facilitation, but really probably the most important part was the key learning of collaboration with community engagement, with common goals, setting realistic goals, that value of consensus among key industry leaders and diverse perspective can really help move you forward. And it can help align those arrows like that slide that we showed yesterday. So we're always trying to align the arrows in the communities. And we really want to start working on basically moving these things now. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Willa to start her presentation, and here you go.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you on behalf of Columbia Economic Team and our tourism partners. Thank you for this opportunity to share a few things about our portion of the Columbia River. Columbia County is made up of 6 rural communities. We're just 25 minutes actually north of Portland and 45 minutes east of the coast. So we're right between 2 really big destination where visitors kind of just drive through our place. And so we actually have 62 miles of the Columbia River with minimal developed access. So, and as you see, we have very little, we don't have a county TLT tax, so we have very little tourism funding to do a lot of these types of projects. The Economic Team, we are a membership dues funded organization. We work countywide and we wear a lot of hats. We focus on business retention and recruitment, which covers a lot of landscape. We, during COVID, did $3 million in small business COVID relief grants. A staff of 2 got those out in 2 years. We do a lot of recruitment. The Oregon Manufacturing Innovation Center is in our backyard, as well as the new PCC Training Center. And so in terms of tourism, we're a staff of 2, but we just brought on and stood up a new small business development center, the 20th in the state, first in 13 years, and the only one not hosted by a community college. So we are the host, and we've hired a director for that. We also have a Keep It Local social media marketing business promotion program, which we have an employee for that. And so when we're not doing all that, we are also the DMO for all of the county. And so, which is a good fit because tourism is economic development. And so with that, we're highly reliant on the consulting and the just access to what we can get from Travel Oregon, as you will see. Since becoming the DMO in 2018, we've hit quite a few milestones, we think, despite the challenges. And so we've done kiosks on CZ Trail. We've used, created some master plans, some conceptual plans, and we've participated in all the Destination Ready programs. And so with that, what we're calling 1.0, we did a bike hub project where we did kiosks and benches and bike stations and used a Travel Oregon consultant to design 4 family-friendly bike routes throughout the communities in Vernonia, Scappoose, Clatskanie, and Rainier. And those, during the time of COVID, it was really nice to have some outdoor recreational facilities, and that was a great addition, not just for visitors, but for the community. This wasn't Destination Ready, but we're calling it 1.1. This was actually funded from one of the competitive grants, and we're really proud of this project. We got a grant to do a lot of Main Street, just kind of a reinvigorating of Main Street cleanup. And it's a key stop on the Crown Z Trail, so it's a really important town for us. It reinvigorated and excited the community so much. Everybody wanted a mural. We started out, we were gonna have 3. We ended up with 7 or 8. As you can see, the before and after of this, the property owner of this really wanted to have a mural, and so invested $40,000 of her own money to do all those pavers. And so this is some outdoor dining now for Islands Grill. And it's already been, it's been in the AAA magazine. And next week, our Congresswoman is coming out to take a tour and see everything. So that's really exciting. And again, making it not just a great place for visitors, but for the community as well. The Destination Ready 2.0 that we just participated in, where we're focusing now on the Columbia River and the access and gaining access and creating more access for that. We gathered all of our stakeholders who have a say and came up with a lot of, we think, really good projects. And with that, we came up with some goals. This is my Travel Oregon water cup, water bottle on the CZ Trail for my evening walks. So Columbia County, one of the projects, we're going to increase campsites and continue to work on that. We've got 5 campsites throughout the county. Doing this Prescott Beach would add a 6th. They are just in the process of purchasing the highlighted portion of land where we can move on with our conceptual plan. It's about 125 acres of bare land right on the beach. And so the idea would be to have RV, cabins, venue, area, and such. And so we're pretty excited for that. And then we're going to continue development of the Crown Z Trail. They'll be doing the Holtz Trailhead, which is kind of like what we did at the Ruley Trailhead, and create a picnic area and a place where visitors and families can come and experience. The city of St. Helens has a lot going on. Sand Island is a campground just about 300 yards off of downtown St. Helens. It has a free ferry or people kayak to go camp out there. So expanding the campsites out there, as well as adding cabins and venue development, is also a goal. We're really excited. And then, as you can see, the waterfront redevelopment project, the first phase is about ready to start kicking off with mixed-use redevelopment of the riverfront. And so we're doing all we can to support that. And that's going to be, I think, epic when things start happening down there. And then Scappoose Bay Marina, when COVID hit, everybody discovered Scappoose Bay and that it was only barely 40 minutes outside of Portland. And so they were at the point where they were seeing as many as 2,000 visitors on a summer day, a summer weekend. And so it really, really taxed the whole area. And so they decided to do a 4-year major renovation and create a new kayak staging area from the primary boat launch and have some dock fingers to ease congestion and improving ADA access. They're going to add more ADA parking, 2 additional ADA kayak launches. I think there's 1 there already, as well as adding an ADA boat lift transfer. But getting the fishermen and the locals kind of away from the kayakers that are coming to visit is going to be really important in making it more of a enjoyable experience for everybody. And so our key takeaways is that the technical assistance is just vital for our ability to work on these projects. With minimal tourism funding, we have to get creative and find lots of different areas where we can find that funding to do these projects. And our ultimate goal is just to, it helps us as an economic development entity to entice businesses to come and live and put roots and stakes out, in our county if the livability is great. So it's not just for visitors, but for the community as well. And so with that, I thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you. And I just wanted to just take one more second to just do a quick little wrap up and thank you for the great work. What they're doing in Columbia County is amazing, and I think it's amazing how to see the economic development and the environmental stewardship really come together, and they're embracing that connection, as well as you heard about the ADA, and I think that one of the things that they're looking to expand is access for all along the river, so that's a really exciting component and something they're looking to add in. The public-private partnerships, it was mentioned on Sand Island, they have a port who basically owns that land and they work with a private concessionaire, so there's some really exciting stories there.
The city owns.
The city owns it, okay, sorry. And then they also are working on the county and some other property owners are working on camping, and they really are innovative and moving quickly, so there's a lot of momentum there. So finally, I want to say, if you know any hoteliers, they are looking for a hotel developer in downtown St. Helens, just to give a plug for that again. So, thanks.
All right. Well, thank you both. Commissioners, you may recall that at the annual Governor's Tourism Conference, there are awards that are given out that are called the Rising Star. Each of the 7 tourism regions has someone named from their region as a Rising Star. Wella was identified as a Rising Star for the Portland region here recently. I know it comes as no surprise to you now that you've had an opportunity to hear her report. So, Wella, congratulations on the award again.
Thank you. And I actually say I was also in the ATLA year 1, so thank you for that as well.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
Not a question. I just want to say, as far as Columbia County is concerned, it's not just Portland, but the 4 bike routes that you have out there. I personally have had friends, and we've come out from Canby, Wilsonville, Oregon City, Clackamas, out there. And so what's happening out there is just amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of the development as you continue to move forward. And I will say this, at the Oregon, the Leadership Academy, your testimony was one of the most powerful ones that we've had. And the impact of it, I believe, also helped a young man that you were working with to get off the streets as well. So kudos to the work that you're doing and also what you're doing to give back to the community and help others.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Erin?
I just want to say, well, I think it's so wonderful what you're doing, and I loved hearing you say that the destination development that's happening in Vernonia and the other communities is supporting not just tourism, but also the community and creating additional assets. Because as we look at the strategic vision that we all agreed upon at our last meeting, that's really key, that we're keeping an eye on tourism in service to the communities that we all represent. And I love hearing that in the Destination Ready program overall. We heard Kevin and Katie talk about the investment in the outdoor adventure, and we don't have a lot of those assets in the Willamette Valley trails, at least. We're really working on the biking side of things. We have a lot of food and beverage, and so creating that balance and seeing how destinations like the Gorge that have a lot on the outdoor rec side are, have such a great food and beverage presence as well, and making that really a 1-2 punch for the state of Oregon. And it really seems like the Destination Ready grants and program overall is moving in that direction. Is that what you're seeing with that?
Yeah. Thank you for that point. And I said I just scratched on the surface of our process, but one of the aspects that we built into the process this year, and I think that we'll continue to move forward, is really look at where is a destination and a destination maturity exercise. And, maturity in quotes, because it may be in different destinations, let's just say maybe in Yamhill County, it was like they're very mature in the wine product and maybe less mature in the cycling product, but there's opportunity there. So I don't want to speak for the county and Jeff's work as well, but that there was a look to say, how can we diversify our offerings? So right now it's a secondary offering, but how can we diversify that to whether it's bring new people in or even just support people who are living there to have things to do. So for the workforce, for example, to bring people in to say, okay, well now there's some really cool outdoor recreation opportunities that the workforce can enjoy as well as the visitors. So part of this is not always just tripling down on what is the primary lure. It may be fortifying that lure, and I know that there's for example, whether it's through workforce or it may be looking to diversify your offerings. So that is definitely a big part of it, and different destinations are at different places when it comes to that maturity scale.
And that's something that we try to do in our recruitment process when we send out packets, is to show, the potential livability of, having their business in our community and the amenities for their employees.
Any other questions or comments at this time? All right. Well, Scott, thank you again. Yeah. Chair Boyles, that concludes our updates for this meeting, and I'm pleased to turn the agenda back over to you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Todd. So we are coming to the conclusion of our meeting today. I'd like to thank everyone for a great meeting. It's been informative and a pleasure as well. But before we adjourn, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank past Chair Youngblood for his dedication and service from 2019 to 2022 as chair, leading this commission and our state through trying times. Scott, bet you didn't see this coming. Scott, as a token of our appreciation, we hope you enjoy this gift showcasing just one of the many, many beautiful places we have in our amazing state.
Make me cry.
Have any words?
No, I don't have any words. This is so beautiful. I'm touched beyond words and incredibly grateful. That's seriously all I can muster right now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. All right, commissioners, any additional business or announcements? Greg?
I wanted to go through at the tail end of the strategic plan progress report is a little fact that's pretty amazing. TLT collection in Lane County for the month of July at $2.65 million. The last time it was over $1 million was 2007, 8, 2008.
2008, yep.
Dramatic increase, and then I wanted to thank you guys for including commission on with this event. Spectacular day, sitting on the deck, listening to French, German, Spanish, and English through a Jamaican accent. A lot of Jamaican accents. And then share with you my experience at a restaurant after that event with a woman from Jamaica. And I don't have a problem talking to people and strangers and asking opinions. And she was confused as to why we had it staged in the country. And I said, the country? And she said, yes. My entire group is in Portland, and we are driving to the country for this event. Why don't you have this event in the city? And I said, well, did you enjoy the drive to the country? Yes. We all said we need to come back and see the country. But and essentially they were conditioned to fly into a city, enjoy a city. That's how they travel, or that's how she said her group travels. But the numbers from Lane County represent a huge influx of dollars and tourists and vested individuals into the state. But they're staying in Portland, and they were, maybe not staying in lovely Sisters, Oregon, but they were sprinkled about the state. I think it was an incredible event, personally, and then financially for the state. I think it was an amazing event. I thank the previous commissioners and Todd, you, for your involvement in getting that event to this state. And I look forward to the final numbers, and we'll never know the real impact, but we can extrapolate out based on my dinner conversation that it's a little larger than numbers will represent. So thanks again.
Indeed, thank you for those comments. And coming from Lane County, I guess we need to do a little more work on the Tracktown USA message marketing in Jamaica. So thanks for that.
I did bring that up. And this is Tracktown USA. Yeah. And she's like, okay.
All right, work to do in Jamaica. I see that. All right, a few more housekeeping items before we adjourn. Unless there were any other announcements, didn't want to preclude that. All
Chair
right.
Boyle, sorry, I'm jumping in for 1
okay.
second.
All right.
Shocking. I just wanted to thank Lizzie and Emily and Allie and Katie and Samara for their incredible hospitality. I think Greg spoke to the cookbook. I'm going to make those salmon meatballs because we have lots of salmon on the Oregon coast. So thank you so much to all the businesses and all the work that everyone did to make our experience so exceptional here. So thank you. That's it.
All right, okay. Then with respect to housekeeping items, I would note that our December meeting will be held in Astoria, Oregon. It will be a Tuesday, Wednesday meeting, the 13th and 14th. Also, commissioners, please don't fly out of the room. We have a photo update for the commission to undertake. And so those are the final housekeeping items. I'd like to thank staff and our local partners for a wonderful meeting. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
I was waiting.
I did not. That's why
The camera's off.